Pledge of Allegiance, which is the flag is located over there. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Larry Hagan.
Here.
Here.
Robert. Here. Tommy.
Here.
Here.
Next thing on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
I move adopt.
Okay, I'll second that. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, same. Okay. And the next item on the agenda is the recognition of patrons and staff.
Yes, first up, we have Julie Murr. Julie, would like to come up and chance to speak to the board. Yep.
Hey Julie, if I could ask if you just can speak up so that everybody can hear since we don't have microphones tonight.
Okay, well, ask my family. They don't have any problem hearing me.
Okay, sounds good.
My name is Julie Murr, and I have a granddaughter in 6th grade. She lives with us. And since the mask mandate started last year, she has had an infection on her face. She's 11. She was 10 back then. We had to get antibiotics, and we had to get a prescription topical cream. Over the summer, it cleared up. Now this fall again, I've had to get another prescription for a topical cream and started her on antibiotics again today. And it's a pretty strong antibiotic. It bothers her that her face is so broke out. She tries really hard to keep it clean. She's got the best skincare products that money can buy. She gets depressed about it. There's also other medication besides antibiotics that she can be on, but they have such really bad side effects, like mood disorders and suicidal thoughts, that I don't want her on that medication. And my thinking is, what if she gets really sick and has to be on another antibiotic, or gets hurt, an injury, and has to be on an antibiotic? Well, if she's already on this Bactrim, then she has to be on a different one for a different infection. You know, that really ups the chances of her getting C. diff, which is really bad. And so I don't know if you guys have thought about the trickle-down effect of this mask mandate. Here we've been to the doctor. We've gotten 4 different prescriptions. It's affected my daughter, my granddaughter, psychologically. It's just something to think about. And do you guys remember when the lady spilled the hot coffee in her lap from McDonald's?
I do.
And she got a lawyer, and they sued McDonald's. Remember that. I was listening to Dr. Kevin Stillwagon. He lives at 205 Dolphin Point, Clearwater Beach, Florida. And in his speech, he said that masks decrease the oxygen in lung tissue, and it makes it easier for the virus to merge with your lung tissue. So your masks actually are helping the virus infect the lungs. And they also said that masked people are 13 times more likely to get an upper respiratory infection than unmasked people. I'd like to talk about some responsibilities of the board. You make choices that affect people's lives. And I understand this because I was on a township board for about 25 years. And the decisions that we made affected people's lives, it affected their safety. Like if we didn't put a stop sign at the right place and it wasn't visible, somebody could blow through that intersection and get killed. Or if we didn't put a yield sign there, somebody could blow through an intersection and get T-boned. Or if we didn't put like at a barricade at the end of a T, somebody could actually drive through there and land in the field, which actually happened out at Mayfield in 1965, I believe it was. 4 teenagers were killed because there wasn't a barricade at the end of a road, and it snapped their necks when they landed in the field. So our choices have ramifications. If we put too much gravel on a road and somebody rolls their car, we could be responsible. And you guys have been informed of the dangers, some of them. I'll go over more of them. What about the testing swabs? Some of the testing swabs that you use have EO on the package. That means that they've been sterilized with ethanol, I can't remember the name of it, ethanol oxide, something close to that. That's a carcinogen, and it's fine as long as it's dry on the end of the swab, but when you touch it to mucus, it gets wet and it activates. And I've actually seen people's insides of their throats where they've been swabbed, and it gets red and very irritated. Also, I don't know if you guys do nasal swabs here, but what if you're using those swabs that are sterilized with ethanol oxide? You're putting a carcinogen up the kids' nose, in their nasal cavity, or in their throat, or in their cheek. What if, a year down the road, several kids come up with brain cancer, nasal tumors, throat cancer, and the doctor says, there's several of these kids that have this problem. Why is this happening? What's the common denominator? Oh, they all had to get swabbed. Well, why did they get swabbed? Well, because the school board voted this in. So it comes back to you. You made decisions, and it has a trickle-down effect.
Julie, your time is more than over, so if you could please just finish up and let the next person talk, please.
What I'm saying is, your decisions affect everybody. And if you know about the dangers of the mask, what if a little kid has a seizure because of lack of oxygen and he has brain damage? Do you think that lawyer about the hot coffee and the McDonald's case doesn't have a brother, and he's going to come after you guys because the child had lack of oxygen, which caused the seizure? And because this is videotaped and it's documented, you know the dangers, and if you still vote for the mask to be in, that's not going to play out good in the law. Just something to think about. And I would ask you, please, please, stop suffocating my child. She's not being able to breathe 100% air with a mask on.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Next up, we have Sarah Lawrence.
First of all, on-site school testing at a public school is not a requirement. It's optional and less than half of all Kansas schools are implementing this plan. Those statistics come from the latest that I could find, which was at the end of August. I think it's important that parents be made aware of this. Because of this optional testing, perfectly healthy children are being put into quarantine because of a possible exposure. Let's think about this for a second. I will use my child as an example since we experienced it firsthand. My child was taken out of school because there was a possibility that he was in direct contact with a child that has COVID. But at the time, the mask mandate was in place. My child had to wear a mask, and the infected child was wearing a mask. So the mask mandate that was put into place that you have so much faith in, was it not protecting our children? If not, what's the point of all this? Then it has to be proven that my child was in direct contact with the child for the definition of a close contact. Who is monitoring these children with such detail at all times? How can it be proven that these children were actually exposed? We have to blindly trust that the teachers are able to closely monitor the activity on a daily basis of approximately 25 students, approximately every 42 minutes when the classes change. We all know that children don't stay in little boxes the teachers put them in. All kids are all over. It makes no sense to quarantine some children and not others. There's no rhyme or reason, it's just a guessing game at this point. Next, I'm asked to submit my child to a COVID test that is not FDA approved or cleared. In order to perform such a test, I am asked to sign an informed consent that legally doesn't have the components necessary to be a true informed consent. Medical informed consent law requires, at minimum, disclosure of the risks, the benefits, risks of alternatives, includes the opportunity to ask clarifying questions, and is done so without coercion. On this copy of the informed consent that parents are asked to sign, there are no details about the benefits, the risks, the alternatives, nor are parents free to ask clarifying questions, as these were asked to be signed in advance at the beginning of school if you chose to do so. I do realize that Holly's really good at contacting the parents prior to testing and does talk to them, but for the parents who just signed it at the beginning, they don't have the ability to ask those questions, and that's a huge component of it. One major component of informed consent is to be sure that the consent is done on a voluntary basis and done so without coercion. Coercion is defined as the practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats. Example, take this test, or a child will be out of school for the next 10 days. While in quarantine, the only way my perfectly healthy child can attend school is if I agree to subject my child to a non-FDA approved test to be completed by a non-medically trained individual with a product that the CDC states is missing asymptomatic infection almost 2/3 of the time. I have the source for that if you guys want that. That means that the child doesn't have a high enough viral load for the test to pick up on. When the viral load goes up, the accuracy of the test also goes up. Therefore, if the viral load is too low to show a positive result, the viral load must be low enough not to be significant enough to be contributing to transmission. Once again, this leads me to the question, why are we keeping healthy, asymptomatic children out of school, and why are we testing them on a daily basis when they are symptom-free? Does the benefit outweigh the risk? That's an important question that medical providers ask themselves. They have to make sure that the benefit outweighs the risk. Where is the written policy on how to manage a child's workload, communication with the teachers for a child that's in quarantine? We simply received a call from the nurse and told us when our child could come back. There was no practice, policy, or procedure that was shared with us on how to communicate with the teacher, how to get work that was assigned, what our options were, if any, for logging in for online courses. Nothing. It was simply, see you in 10 days. That was it. How can we sit here and say we are doing all we can for these children and that we value their education when we don't even have a written policy in place on how to manage the large number of children that are essentially kicked out of school while in quarantine? They are missing out on weeks of school with little to no interaction from their teachers. Is this a public school or a medical facility that my child is enrolled in? Because quite frankly, it's feeling more like a medical facility than a public school. I will end with what I have consistently said. There are several other things that we can be implementing in schools to reduce the risk of COVID, but nobody wants to talk about them or put the effort into them. The school board is skipping to the most restrictive violating recommendation, sitting back and hoping that we all abide by the overreaching mandates. Here's my last question. Does this mask mandate that you put into effect directly affect your children? Not grandchildren, but children. Every single one of you will say no, except for one. It's easy to sit here and vote on things that affect other people's children when you have no skin in the game. And because of this, I have a hard time taking seriously the recommendations of those that have voted for a violation of parental rights when your own children are not even affected by it.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Tanya Ibarra.
Hello. My name is Tawny Ibarra. Most of you know who I am. I will start with saying most of what I had planned is the same thing Sarah just mentioned. But I do want to reiterate that I am against the mask mandate and I am for parent choice. I am requesting the following information to be provided to me. Please provide the scientific data behind the percentages currently being used in the masking criteria. Please provide the checks and balances protocol that is being used to confirm a student is in fact a close contact to a positive case, not just taking someone's word for it. And please provide the protocol in place for testing and quarantine of our school nurse and her aides who are routinely testing close contacts. Also, please provide all credentials and training of each nurse aide that has been hired by this district to perform medical testing on our students. Those are the main things that I am adding to my list, and I would like to level with all of you. I stood before you 2 weeks ago and asked for information that I have not received. The meeting was heated, parents spoke out, there was a lot of back and forth, and no one wants to see a meeting like that again. However, when emails go unanswered and messages go unanswered, we stand in front of you and ask questions directly and they go unanswered, what else are us concerned parents left with? We don't want to do that, but we want to communicate with this board. We want our voices to be heard. We stand in front of you by signing a form that we had to complete to be added to the agenda, and it clearly states that we cannot interact with you during a meeting. So again, when are we supposed to get our questions answered? Since the beginning of COVID, the very beginning of COVID, I have received responses to my emails from 3 board members. One of them, only one of you, has responded to every single communication that I have attempted to send. Thank you, Pat. We need to be on the same page. You obviously have 50-50 here. I've heard 50-50 said multiple times. Tom, I think you're the one that says that number the most. Parents want the mandate, parents don't want the mandate. Where is a common ground? Simply, the percentages that we're at right now, they're unreasonable. If you have 2 kids out in Washington, masks are back on their faces. When my child was in 1st grade there were 12 students out of his class alone with a stomach bug. No masks were mentioned, no quarantines were mentioned, we just went on like normal. What's the difference? Why are we masking these students? Why are we quarantining these students? I honestly feel like it is time that you guys give us parents a little leeway to make the medical decisions for our own children and leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
I have some questions about some of the discussion, just to throw out, can I or can I not throw those out there?
Sure, you can wait till more comments, yes.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Then everybody's going on. Well, I would like, I'm just gonna throw this out there, so, I mean, I would like to know what kind of swabs we use. I didn't look those up, I don't know, but that is a good question. And I did have down already about the qualifications of the people that we have hired to do the testing, you know. But what are those qualifications? I had that written down before. She mentioned that, and this is just to Julie, you know, is there any way you could get a medical release for your parent-child maybe? Because I think on medical conditions, if you have a doctor's signature, can't that be a reason that you don't wear a mask?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so, you know, Julie, if that's something that we could look at, maybe you already have, I just thought that when we were talking, well, for now, those are my major ones, I just.
Okay. So that being said, I guess we'll be moving on to the discussion items. First thing on the list is e-gaming presentation.
Yes, Christy Custer is here the district has recently been talking about possibly looking into at least information on possibly providing future activity for our students, which is kind of a hot up-and-coming thing for students across not just the campus, but the nation. And so this is for, Christy's here, and I don't know if Jen, you want to introduce her better than I can, but.
Doing a good job.
You'll do a good job.
And
But-
Mark is here too.
I know.
Here to discuss e-gaming and what it takes to possibly start that in our district.
We have to chuckle just a little bit. This is my partner, Michael Russell, and I like to start out our presentation by saying, my name is Christy Custer, and I hate video games. Because I have a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 8-year-old, and we battle daily about screen time. And so I'm not the video game person. Mike is actually the video game person. And so, but to his chagrin, often, I'm a little bit of an anomaly in the esports world because of my gender alone. And so when I get up, or we go to conferences, I typically get a little bit of attention just because I'm a girl. And so Mike, I had to tease him a little bit as we were walking up because he was like, Parker, of course, that you gotta do this. So. And so as we're getting this set up, I'm just gonna give you a little background information on who I am. I taught at McPherson High School. I started in 1997. And then I was there for 4 years as an English and journalism teacher, and then I moved over to Mays, America, to their alternative school, and I was there for 20 years. And so I've been in education for 24 years, and the last 12 I've been the principal at the alternative school in Mays. And so last year, toward the end of the year, I kind of had this moment where I looked around. Complete High School Mays, some of you may have heard of it. It is, has won the National School of Character Award twice. I was the Kansas Principal of the Year once. And I'm not saying it to brag, it's just I was done with Complete High School. Not done like I'm done, but I looked around one day and I thought, you know what, there's not anything left for me to build. And we've heard a lot about mental health issues. Well, I don't know if you guys have, but I'm going to assume that you guys have heard a lot about mental health issues in schools. And I've kind of spent my whole career helping kids that were on the fringe or helping kids that didn't have a spot or didn't have a why in school to find their why. And about 5 years ago, I hired Mike as our social studies teacher, and we asked a question at Complete High School: what is your passion project? We often hear about student passion projects, and those are great, but when a teacher has a passion project, that's when things really start humming along. So we have a store at Reflection Ridge Retirement Community that our students ran. Still refer to them as our students.
I know, I was like.
haven't gotten past that quite yet. We had a garden that we did, and we do tutoring. We have a lot of teacher passion projects. And so when I was interviewing him, he almost shyly said, I really like video games. And I could immediately, even though he was a little bit embarrassed almost about it, I could immediately see this is going to be a connection. Because we had a lot of students at Complete High School that love video games. And like I said, I have a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 9-year-old who absolutely adore video games. And so about 5 years ago, Mike started our gaming at Complete High School Mays. And it really took off, and the thing that we immediately noticed about it is attendance went up massively. We strive for an 85% attendance rate at Complete High School, which for an alternative school is really, really good. And the kids in that class were at a 96% attendance rate. And you have to keep in mind, these are alternative school kids. And so that was the first thing that went up, is that the kids actually showed up. And so tonight, we are here as we got hired together with the High School Esports League, and they are actually a company out of Kansas City. Weirdly, Kansas is a little bit of a hub in the esports world. Right here, or close, in Wichita, we have something called the Unified Esports League,
or Unified Esports, and they started out as the Wichita Esports, and then they became Midwest Esports, and now they're Unified Esports. In Kansas City, we have the High School Esports League, and then you also have the National Association of Collegiate Esports. And so just right here in Middle America, we're kind of a hot spot for esports. So we were hired by them, and so that's my full disclosure. This is my job now. I write curriculum so that schools can bring esports into the schools. And so we're going to talk about that tonight, because people often say, Christy, how can you advocate for kids to play video games in schools? How can you advocate to teach kids about video games in schools? And what I say is, we're not teaching kids how to play video games, because guess what? Kids already know how to play video games in school. So that is not what we're doing. But what we did is we actually wrote a curriculum, and we'll talk a little bit about it, where you can get half a credit to a full credit by actually taking this as a class. And this is the hook, is the video games, but what we're actually teaching is digital citizenship, social emotional learning, and college and career readiness, and a lot of the soft skills that are so hard to teach in regular classes. And so that's what we're doing. Mike?
I'm Mike, and I work there too. No, so yeah, my journey's been long with esports. I've been doing this for a long time. Christy I was blessed to have Christy as a principal. She hired me and let me try something crazy, and this is what it turned into. So we wrote a curriculum that we gave away for free. The first one we gave away, and it was downloaded 300,000 times in 40 countries. So,
300,000 times in 40 countries from 2 people from Maze America, because Microsoft picked it up, is what happened to us.
So we're fortunate to have some success there and start teaching it. And we'll talk about our results in class and everything. And we've now started to kind of talk about ourselves as Penn and Teller, and I'll let you figure out which one's which by the end. So you'll probably figure it out pretty fast.
Rude, very rude. And we work best, because I can't remember anything, we work best if you stop us and ask questions. Is that would be most comfortable for you guys? Is that what we're I forget, I've done a board meeting in a little while. So if you have questions, if you just want to stop us, no question's a dumb question, and we won't be offended. Because we've been with parents, who have said, I can't believe that you're doing this. And typically, if we just talk about what we're doing and what the kids aren't doing in class, then we can kind of come to an understanding. So please don't feel like you're being offensive, or you're welcome to be encouraging if you want to also. So, Mike?
You want to click, or you want me?
Go ahead. So the first question we always ask everyone is, why do your kids come to school? Why did you come to school? What are your memories of school? Social. The social butterfly. Yes.
They loved algebra.
Loved algebra.
Sure that was it.
No. Lots of kids will answer, well, here's what, lots of teachers will answer athletics, activities, band. I had a favorite teacher. I went there because I wanted to be with my friends. I went there because I didn't want to be on the farm. My dad's a farmer, and it was like, oh, thank goodness. I have 3 brothers, and we all wanted to go to school so we didn't have to farm. So that was kind of, especially when you're a teacher, many teachers, not all, but many teachers come back to school because I had a great time in school. I love school. I loved everything about school. I went there for every August for 41 years, 46. Every August for 41 years, I look forward to going to school. But that is not the case for many of our students. And so according to the Kansas Communities That Care survey, do you guys do that at Wellington?
Yes.
Okay. It's if you're not familiar with it, it's a survey that's given to 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. And this is a composite of 10th and 12th graders. How often, the question was, how often do you feel that the school work you are assigned is meaningful and important? How often do you feel that your schoolwork is meaningful and important? In 2020, almost 32% of kids said it's meaningful and important. And then in 2021, 37% said, how often do you feel your work is meaningful and important? So 2/3 of our kids are thinking that it's meaningful. 1/3 of our kids are saying never or not often. Is the stuff that we're doing in school meaningful or important? Thinking about the past 12 months, how often did you enjoy being at school? Never or not often. Once again, almost a third of our kids are never or not often enjoying being in school. And then finally, thinking about the past 12 months, how often did you hate, pretty strong word, hate being in school? Almost always or often, about 36% of our kids, 34% of our kids, again, a third of our kids, probably a third of our kids in all of our schools are not liking school. What's worse, still, Kansas Community Set Care Survey, so these are Kansas kids, this isn't nationwide, Kansas kids, go ahead. 22,000 of them out of 71,000 said they're experiencing feelings of depression. 10,000 had seriously thought about killing themselves. 6,700 kids had made a plan on how to kill themselves, and 2,600 kids in Kansas, 10th and 12th graders, had actually attempted suicide. This freaked me out. And actually, I'm going to be honest, this is one of the reasons that I decided to leave education. Is because I have a very, I kind of like conflict. And I was afraid that I would have a conflict with one of the kids and they'd go home and commit suicide. And I wasn't going to be able to stand it. I couldn't live with it. And so I knew my own personality, I knew it's probably time for me to go. I've been doing this a long time. The average alternative school person is 3 to 5 years. I've been there 20. It's about time for me to go. Okay, and so are these the kids from Wichita? Are these the kids from, my kids go to Renwick Garden Plain? They're probably right here. How do we identify these kids? What things are in place to identify these kids? I didn't know. At Complete High School Maze, when we got the Kansas Community Set Care Survey back, 40% of our kids had made a plan to kill themselves. That's almost half of my kids had made a plan to kill themselves. Okay, next. And so one of the things that we know about how to stop that is to get kids engaged. And so when I thought about those two slides together, I thought, gosh, all of these kids are feeling depression and they're feeling suicidal. And so many of them aren't engaged in school. What can we do to make kids more engaged in school? And even before I started working for the High School Sports League, I really felt like we found the silver bullet. And that is when we brought video games into schools. Because it was a natural hook for those kids. And especially for those kids on the fringe or the at-risk kids, and those were the ones that I really dealt with, they were even more than the traditional school. And so what we saw was that some of the student impact is you. No, it's me. We saw that 100% of our students were having positive peer interactions. It increased classroom participation by 80%.
Well, yeah, so peer interaction, they were interacting with a peer that they never would have interacted with before. So they're expanding their friend group and learning about other people who they wouldn't have traditionally been hanging out with. That's one of the beautiful things about esports is varieties of kids play. It's a very diverse group of kids that are involved. People have football players and band players and kids who've never done anything will get in a video game and play together to try to accomplish a goal. So, the classroom participation, that is where they because of the participation in our class, the gaming concepts class, they were participating in other classes more. So they were answering questions and being involved in the discussion where before they would just kind of sit there and wait and hope to not be called on.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to keep going?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is. Yeah.
The reason we're keeping going is because this was a study done by Dr. Russell. So I'm like, why am I talking about this? Because this is a study.
So toxicity is poor online behavior, whether being a part of it, witnessing it, partaking in it yourself. I don't think anybody would be surprised to know that 100% of kids have witnessed that or partaken in it. The cool thing that we found over time was that in the class, kids were learning anger management strategies. So 90% of the kids said, I learned something in here to help me solve that problem where I felt like I had to engage and I had to respond to the person who called me a name or whatever. So now they're taking it, now they're reflecting on it and saying, I don't need to reply. I don't have to respond to that message. So 90% of the kids who were in the course actually were on the after-school esports team. We did not have any after-school programming in our school until we had the esports team. And we started to have colleges visit, so there are scholarships available. Probably at about 400 or 500 universities by this point. When we started, it was about 200 universities. And we had colleges come and recruit our kids to be on the team, which for an alternative school, well, it had never happened at our school in 20 years. We had colleges coming to visit to recruit our kids, so, which is super cool. I mean, our kids thought it was awesome. They're getting offer letters to go to college where they never thought they'd graduate high school, and now they're getting offers to go to college, so. Fun, 70% of the kids said they had fun. You might think this is kind of low, but we never asked the question if they were having fun. They just shared that. They're like, oh, I had so much fun in there. Well, some of them will tell you they didn't have as much fun all the time because there was a lot of academics involved. And some of the kids actually said it was the hardest class they had. So, and then we focused on a lot of character traits that, we'll talk about a little bit later on the slide, but, or did we take that out? No, we'll talk about it later. Just all the general things that we would talk about in hopefully in like a digital citizenship class or something like that. So. Uh-oh, my computer went to sleep. It's fine. It's hard working with technology that's not yours, I'm just gonna say that. You want to do this? Okay. So these are the attendance numbers, so we kind of looked at, so this is just for the class. We actually did another part where the students, we looked at the kids who were in the class and the after-school program, and their attendance rate was actually about 10% higher. We looked at 2 years where we offered the course and compared the kids who were in the course to kids who never took the course, and the percentage rates are right there, 7.44 in 2018, 7.7 2018, 2019. So I don't have the 2019-2020 numbers because I finished my study and didn't have that done yet. So, but in the course, the first couple of years we averaged about 94%, and by year 3 we're at 96%. So the kids were in the class 96% of the time. For those, the attendance rate in Kansas is about 94%. So our alternative school kids were there more than.
Is this just at complete high school?
This is just at our school, yes.
Is it in Mays High School?
Oh, the class?
Yeah.
No, it is at Mays High School. It's in our career academy. Wichita School District teaches it in all of their high schools and middle schools.
Okay.
And then we think it's in about 1,000 schools because it was free for so long. People picked it up and used parts of it. So we don't know where it all has landed yet, but.
And we need to talk about, there's three parts to esports. And so a lot of people just think esports, you're playing video games. But really, we're trying to educate people that there's really 3 parts to it. There's a scholastic part to esports, and that's like what we're doing. A class in school where they're actually using video games to teach these skills. And then there's another component to it, which is the one that's most well known, that's the competitive piece of esports. And that's typically an after-school team. And then there's also a social piece to esports, and that's typically in the form of a club. And so when you're thinking about esports, we're trying to change the dialogue a little bit, and it's scholastic gaming, because there's really 3 pieces to it, because so many kids want to be involved. And so some kids, they want to be involved in that scholastic piece. We see a lot of girls and a lot of that become interested in STEM through courses like this, because esports, not necessarily by definition, but when we're talking about esports, it's typically played on a PC, which I didn't know. Because my kids have Xboxes and they have PlayStations and they have all of that. Girls like these things. And so you can play video games on this. In fact, this is probably the next iteration of it. It's going to be huge on this. But we like the PC concept because it brings those girls, and I'm stereotyping here, but it brings a lot of those girls in because they get into the class, they've got these peer mentors that are typically boys who are well excited to teach these girls until the girls have a tendency to whip up on those boys pretty darn fast. And so then it's not fun anymore, and then it becomes competitive. But it's a little bit, Mike talked a little bit about the toxicity piece. I didn't know that, in fact, it's almost unconscionable what we do with these. I don't know how you guys are as parents, but I guess I'm a bad parent because come around their 13th birthday, I go,
happy birthday, or about their 9th or 10th birthday, they got an Xbox, they got whatever they get. And then we give them we sit down with them and we give them 3 or 4 hours of instruction on this is how much you should be using your Xbox. These are the sites that you should be on. This is what, right? No. Did any of us do that? No. We give them the most powerful technological tool in the history of the world. This thing could get the space shuttle to the moon back in the 60s, and then we walk away from them. And so that's one of the big things is it's a digital platform. It's a base where kids can learn in a safe environment. This is what you do with these tools. And so that's another reason why we really like it, and we really like the scholastic piece because kids feel comfortable coming in and learning when it's in school. A lot of times that competitive piece, when you just do it after school, which is probably where you might be, I don't know where you're planning on starting, but that's where a lot of places start. Sometimes you won't get all of those kids that are interested in it because they're afraid that they're not good enough. Okay, questions so far while they're trying to get this to work?
Have you tried restarting it? That's the tech thing. So it's minimized down here. It's up on that screen now. Oh dear.
Okay, and so when Mike is talking about the 1,000 schools, those are the 1,000 schools that we know that are using ours. We'll show you we have the High School Esports League alone has over 5,000 schools in the United States and North America that are participating in esports. It's wild in like the Asian countries. We have esports teams in Australia, and there's other
Vietnam, India.
yeah, and there are also other esports companies that do scholastic esports. So one of the reasons why this is such a big deal to kids is if you look at this chart, kids that were born in 2002, these are all of the things since they have been alive that have come into place. So if they were born in 2002 and they graduated in 2019, they saw the impetus of Facebook came around, YouTube came around, Twitter came around, cell phones became big, iPads became big, TikTok became big. And as you go up, kids that were born in 2015, and so they're in kindergarten for 2nd grade right now, all of this stuff has always been here. And when I got up in front of a class to teach, this is what I did a lot. Kids are bored in our classes, and especially those little ones. Because what did we do as bad parents, as bad mommy to my 9-year-old? How many of you have been in a restaurant, and what do the parents do? We're bad parents. But they're just used to having these. And so what's gonna happen when this moves forward, and those 5-year-olds are 18-year-olds, are we even gonna have cell phones anymore? What's gonna be the new technology? Technology is moving far, far faster than the arcane art of education. I mean, I've been doing it for 24 years and it really hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot. Okay.
Yeah, time, I mean, do we need to go over time? Oh,
There's no certain time.
okay. Okay, we just want to make sure that we're respectful.
Unless Mr. Newberry cuts you off.
Okay, all right.
We're not.
We don't have a lot left, I'm just saying. So, this all started as grassroots, like we said, little pockets of teachers who were similar to me and had my passion. There's little spots around the world. Now we're starting to see it all kind of grow and get together. So when we had our team, we competed nationally against teams all over the country. And then they would play for a national championship. This year it's going to be held in Dallas at the Esports Convention Center that they have down there. Some schools do it as an after-school club, some schools do it as the academic piece and do both. It's really kind of talk to your students and figure out what works best for you and what they're interested in. Like Chrissy said, the social piece is nice, so to not make it so competitive, so you can even add a third club where it's the social gamer club, not the competitive piece. So the kids who are interested in gaming, and we just had this discussion today about screen time, and I know we're all, my kids are on their phones constantly, and they're 24 and 21. But the difference between what they're doing and what we're doing in gaming is there's actually purpose behind it. I'm accomplishing something. I'm working towards a goal. I'm not just scrolling through Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat. And so we call that purposeful play. We took that from the little kids. They do purposeful play with their blocks and they socialize and that kind of thing. So I always like to make that distinction because yes, we don't want to have a lot of screen time, but we also don't want them to just sit around and look at their phone all day. And the reason we can do what we do is because we have a teacher in the room and we're there for those teachable moments when things happen. So we can tell them how to interact with people online and show them about bullying and toxicity and handle it when it happens instead of having a little lesson on it about something that theoretically might happen to them at some point in their life. So.
One of the best conversations that we have, if you're familiar with Dr. Watson, Dr. Randy Watson, if you're not familiar with him, he's the Commissioner of Education. And he kind of liked to complete high school because we were a laboratory really in the state because we tried new things there. But he came down and he was touring the building one day and this is when it was very new, and he said, Christy, I can see the kids are having a great time. Nobody's on their phones, no one's asleep, everyone's engaged. And he goes, what are they going to do with this? Are they all going to become gamers? Are they all going to become video game designers or work on computers? And I couldn't quite explain it to him exactly. And then our superintendent, actually, Chad Higgins, he came over and he goes, I totally get this. It's like band. And I was like, what do you mean it's like band? And he goes, with band, you get into high school, the band teacher isn't really teaching you how to play the instruments. The band teacher might not even know how to play the trumpet. Their instrument might be the piano. But the band teacher is there to help organize. We're all playing the same music. You're the lead chair of this. We're gonna march, we're gonna practice, we're gonna do this. That's what the teacher does. And these kids don't go on into college to become piccolo players, or very few of them go on to become even music majors. And they even might get a scholarship. My daughter has a scholarship at K-State.
To play piccolo.
To play piccolo in the band. And so, but she's not a music major. But what we know about those band kids is they're some of the most high-achieving students in the school. Why is that? Is it band? Is it reading the notes? What makes them some of the most high-achieving students in the school? And one thing that we've seen in athletics, and you'll see this in all or most teams, is that these kids have a connection. And that's what a lot of gamer kids, they don't have, and those at-risk kids that they don't have, is they don't have a connection. They don't have a connection in the school, they don't have a why. They don't have a good group of friends, and they don't have any pride in the school. And one of the things that happens, they get jerseys, and they wear them to school on game day. Like they become a part of the ecosystem of the school. They become part of something special.
Those are our actual groups.
From Complete High School Mace, yes. Your gamer.
And they have your gamer tag on the back. For those of you who don't know what a gamer tag is, that's how you're known online. That is my gamer tag.
What's the gamer tag? Mr.
Bob.
Bob.
It used to be Mr. and the kids changed it. They made me change it. So.
Mine is Dream Killer.
We don't let her play much.
Because the kids gave me that title as the principal of Complete High School Mace.
Yeah.
It's more about realistically adjusting their life. It wouldn't fit on the gamer tag.
That's true.
So the other thing about the course and in correlation to band is the band kids typically have this similar schedule. Because they take band at this time of day and then they have to take this. So they have a similar schedule with people in the band. So they start to build their friend group throughout the day. And they're in the same classes together and they coordinate their schedules because they know they have band. So, I want to be in outdoor with my friend and I want to be in this with my friends. well, nobody wants to be an outdoor with their friend, but you have to take outdoor
Nobody
with your
wants to be
friend.
out.
But,
Oh, no, that's bad.
yeah. I'm just joking. Sorry. So some logistics here for, this is kind of for the board to understand and what kind of goes into this. So there are some coaching responsibilities. We did have a supplemental for our coaches. It was about $2,000 a year. There's 2 seasons. There's a fall season and a spring season, and that was $2,000 for the entirety of the year. That covered practices and everything. We fought and fought to get that for me for 4 years. I got it in 1 year. The last year I was there. So we finally got it, but it happened. In Wichita, they have it for all their teachers, all the coaches. So
What's the cost of starting it up? Say, okay, yeah, great, we're gonna do it. What's the initial cost?
yeah, so that's the equipment needs is the big one. So I always encourage schools to look for, most of them have a lab or something that's just used maybe a couple times a day, but never for after school. So you may already have an existing computer lab that will work for doing this. That would probably be your area of expertise. So I don't want to speak for you, but
What do you do your yearbooks on?
PCs.
Do they
you
have?
probably have like a computer graphics class so a lot of the classes that you have PCs for already will probably run these games, most of them. The computers we have are 5 years old and they were still running the games that were coming out today, so.
The other reason that it's taken off so big is a lot of schools are using ESSER money right now. Because technology is a piece of the ESSER funds, and so I don't know what your district's doing. I always hate to, but it's a suggestion just because I know other schools are doing it. They're using those for, you can't get gaming laptops also, I have one. And so you can do that also.
So if you have the ability to repurpose a lab just for a couple of times a day, the startup cost on it will be pretty minimal, other than you might have to purchase some game licenses and things like that. The other big obstacle is the IT opening the firewall, and because I know we kind of keep those things tied down now, and some of the ports have to be open for them to get on these games. So depending on the game. So there would be some issues with making sure. The way we did it in Mays was that one particular lab had access to just those games, but nobody else in the district did. So they had one, they basically just cordoned off that area with, and I'm only talking to you because I know this is your area, so.
And one of the tricky things that people don't understand, this is one of Mike and I's jobs, is Mike talks about games and then I translate for him. So basketball, who owns basketball? Mr. Naismith? I don't know. Nobody owns basketball. Basketball, anybody can play basketball. So it's like, let's start a basketball club or let's start a basketball team. And you go and you get a ball and you start a basketball. And volleyball and football and all of those work the same. People own these games. Companies own these games. Does that make sense, Sarah? So there's licensing issues involved. And that's where companies like the High School Esports League came along, because they deal with the licensing issues and then they help you to play in the tournaments. Does that make sense?
And middle school too?
Yeah, they offer Rocket League, chess, which a lot of people don't think of online gaming as chess, but that is a very popular game, especially because of the Netflix show Queen's Gambit. But
Well, and also because last year, like in the state of Kansas, because my son is huge into chess, the state chess, all of the tournament last year was online. Like if you were involved in chess at the state level, it was all online, which was wonderful as a parent.
and chess is like, to participate in that tournament is free, Rocket League is free, so they don't charge, for everything. Oh, I'm gonna regret that.
Is it a franchise you have to buy, or
Say it again?
is it a franchise that you have to buy in order to use it, or
No.
pay per game that's
If you do any of the game, the Rocket League, chess, any of those games, those are
They
all free
already
to
own.
use.
Or they only,
You don't need to do anything, the kids will just create an account, and there's no cost to the district or to the student to do that. There are games where, if you want to participate in some of the ones where we give away scholarship money, then there is a cost for those, so, but you're not required to take any.
And it's kind of confusing because like Overwatch, you want to get that going, and I'll talk about this more, because I know already. Overwatch would be one, like it's $40 a license, And so what we did at Complete High School is we had like, well, a lot of schools will do, they'll get a license of like 15 or 20 or 25, however many they want in the class, but you've got to buy that for every single computer in the class. But on the flip side of it, if they're true gamers, if they're true gamer kids, they don't want to play on the school site license because it doesn't keep track of all of their statistics. And so they all, if they're true gamers, well, I should say true. Well, if they're true gamers, they're gonna have theirs. And the other thing is it's something called cross-platform. Please know that all I'm doing is regurgitating information because I did not know what this all meant. And so cross-platform means like they have Xbox games and they have PC games and they have PS games and they can all compete.
Against each other. So
Okay.
they don't need to have a specific copy of Overwatch for a PlayStation and an Overwatch for a PC. Now that cross platforms, they can play each other.
I've got a question actually about.
Yes.
So if on the different games that are offered,
Yep.
they have to play all of those?
No,
So they can choose which?
most of them probably are gonna be skilled in one, maybe
That's what I
two,
was curious, like,
Yeah.
if Larry wants to play Call of Duty, but.
which you know he does.
Larry.
But we're saying, sorry, Larry, you gotta play NBA 2K today.
Yeah, no, not at all, no, they sign up for the tournament that they want, and I know this is always a question that comes up, so I'll just stress it. Some of these games we did not play at our school because of the graphic nature of it, so
Right,
like some of them we just were
exactly,
like,
yes,
we're not
yes,
gonna
yes.
touch those.
That was the other
I
question.
mean, they are offered in our league that we now work for, but when we were in school, I mean, we didn't play CS:GO, we didn't play Call of Duty.
Please, Wellington, do not start with Call of Duty.
Yes, that will not probably be the best
The
choice.
second question along that lines is online gaming, usually vulgarities about my mom. How do they regulate that does that happen in the tournaments or meets
You
or?
mean like when they're playing and they get
When, yeah,
nasty?
the back and forth.
Yeah, so that's the awesome part about having the coach in the room and the teacher in the room, right? So now they can address those things, it absolutely happens, but what's happening now is they're doing that anyway and nobody's watching them.
Exactly.
So-
I was
so-
curious how that was regulated, if they just shut the chat off? or-
Yeah, we can, and the chat can't be disabled, that is a feature, and our company, and like, we work for like, we're like in a silo, so we know what's going on, but we don't really, the company kind of operates, but I know the tournament rules, and I know that if a player were to get reported for toxicity, they would be out.
Okay,
Like, they
okay.
would ban them from the tournament, 100%.
Can you carry it
If a
on?
team cheats, they're out, I mean,
If you're doing it at school, can you go home and finish it or go home and do it too?
we do have teams that do play at home. It would be hard to stop like in the middle of
Yeah.
the school day and then go home and continue the match. That probably wouldn't happen. But you might have, the way it works is we have several queue times for all the different games. So Mondays, we might have Overwatch Monday, Tuesday, and Friday at 4:00. So you can queue up at any of those times to play. And then the queue system matches you up with another team that's chosen to queue at that time, Monday, Tuesday. So then that's the team you're gonna play. You do your little interaction. There's a queue system where they interact and say, hey, add me to your friend list so I can start to join the match. We'll create the match, and then off they go.
So are these, what am I trying to say, are they streamed? You stream any of it Twitch?
You can, we do.
So we can watch,
Yep.
kind of see it?
Yeah, the best part, I mean, streaming's great, but if you can have a live audience, that's even better. So we would have parents come watch our kids, and staff would come watch them, but you can stream, that is and that's really another cool thing about, we have teams out there who have like a team manager, and then they have their social media manager, and they have their streaming group and their broadcast group, so they can do all of those things within the club. They might not necessarily even be gamers, they just want to do those things, so they do that, and they shoutcast, so they'll get on there and talk about how they're doing this on this move and doing these things, so there's just a lot of opportunity, even if you're not gaming, to be a part of it.
Well, I guess I was curious if we could watch or somehow.
Sure.
So
We don't provide that, that's not something, but if you were to say, if you have kids who are interested in doing that, absolutely, they can get on there and stream it and show it to whoever you want to show it to. Put it on the school website
So another
or
reason
the
why
YouTube channel.
Another reason why this took off, especially why you've heard about it a lot over the last year, is the kids can play from home. The issue with playing from home, it's an equity and access issue for a lot of schools. Because these true gamer people have these $2,000 PCs or $1,200 PCs, and they are playing fancy pants, and they will beat you, because if you're on a console, they'll beat you every time, because this is powerful. Well, my son, so he's a gamer, and he's 17, and for Christmas, he wanted a gaming computer. And so we got him one, because my husband and I can afford it. And we got this, and he went downstairs, and for the rest of Christmas break, I never saw him. And I'm like, 17 years old, on the computer, in the basement with the door shut, I know what he's doing. And so I burst into his room, look at the computer, Christian, what are you doing down here? And he's like, Mom, I coded a program to mine Bitcoin. And I looked upstairs to make sure the Russians weren't at my door. And I was like, first of all, my son, we're at Garden Plain. He's never taken a coding class. And second of all, his little finance class, I know they didn't talk about Bitcoin. And so these kids that get involved in this technology, it's so much more than gaming. He's so comfortable with a computer. And so a lot of your kids that are gonna like doing this stuff, I'd love to have it at school, not only because it's a connection at school, but this is where we get the girls and some of those other people that aren't, super excited about technology, because all they can think of is, well, I can only be a gamer and I can be a programmer. Well, that's not right. There's so many things. This class that we're doing, it's actually part of the series, and the next book that's coming out is gonna be CTE funded, well, the next two. And we didn't put it in the IT pathway, we put it in the arts pathway. Because so many other people get involved in the arts pathway that get involved over here. And these are high-paying jobs. This is about bringing people in and letting them know, just because you're a gamer doesn't mean that you're stuck right here. It's like, my husband's been in the military for 32 years, and a lot of people think that you're gonna be carrying a gun and you're gonna be like in the trenches. Well, there's finance people in the military, and there are, food industry people in the military, and there are that's the same in esports. It's a $5 billion industry. I mean, it's huge. The opportunities are huge. When I decided to go to work for the High School Esports League, I called up Dr. Watson, who said, well, what jobs are they gonna do? And I said, guess what? I work in esports. This is a job. I do a job. I'm in tech. I do a job. I don't play video games. But there are so many jobs because the industry is so big.
And I don't know if this will be a bad thing or a good thing, but a lot of these jobs don't require you to go to college or after any college. They require you to have a technical degree or something, but a lot of the people who are in tech, they've, worked on a computer and coded themselves and figured it out just like their son did, without anybody's help other than they're YouTube certified, right? I'm YouTube certified to do a lot of things because, I just YouTube it and it tells me what to do. This is just a map of all of our partner schools right now. Like I said, this is not a sales pitch. We're not trying to sell you anything. This is just information. When we started with them 5 years ago, there was like 400 schools on this map. And now there's like 3,300.
And the other cool thing is when you queue up in Middle America, you can play against any of these people. And there's no boys teams, there's no girls teams. We have tons of LGBTQ students who feel comfortable in this space. And so it's a safe space for kids to go, because it's a community.
Now, we never played anybody in Alaska because of the time zone.
Yes, that's an issue.
Hawaii. Yeah, we know Hawaii, But we played people from New York, Florida, California, North Dakota, Texas, Illinois, all over the place. This is our lab, the lab that we built at our school. This is the second version of it. We were fortunate enough to get in the middle of a remodel on our school, and they kind of gave us a wish list of things we wanted, and this is, the computers we already had, we wrote 40 grants to get our computers because we didn't have any. We were Chromebooks 1-to-1 in our school, so we wrote grants to get all the computers and the headsets and everything, but then when we did the remodel on our school, they went all out on it, so we got,
Does it have to look like this?
No.
No. This is probably nicer than many of the college ones, because we actually have colleges come and would look at ours. Wichita's is 5 times as big as this.
yeah, Wichita actually has an
Twice.
arena, like 85 computers in there. They have a smoke machine, music, DJ booth, announcing booth, seating for all the people to watch, and then they also have a practice area that's not included in the 85. It's another 35 computers that it's gamer chairs and all the bells and whistles. So again, you don't need to start there, and I wouldn't start there. Do it with 6 or 12 computers and then prove it out, see if it's working for you, and then this is yours.
So now we're talking about the scholastic piece in school. And so when we started this, we at Mays and a lot of schools, well, they do it differently all over the place. I mean, we know how the United States is, they just do it differently all over. So I'll give you some examples of what we're doing in this area. Andover has it, Wichita has it, Valley has it. Valley doesn't use ours though. Well, I don't know. I don't know what they're using for sure.
I think they use play versus.
Yes. Which is perfectly fine. But, so gaming concepts is typically a business course, so it's taught by a business teacher. So licensure can be an issue. This first one that we did, it's like the knowledge level. The second one that we're doing, it's going to be CTE, can be CTE funded, so that would need to be taught by a certified teacher in that area, whatever area you're going to teach it in. We suggest that, and the second one's going to follow,
I'm trying to go back and forth because I'm not sure which one you're in.
it's going to follow, I can't remember the name of the class now.
Interactive media.
Interactive media, it's an interactive media class. Who's in the high school? Do you have an interactive media class?
Yes.
You have it?
It's digital media, but it's interactive, yes.
Okay, because that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to nail a class that they don't have and make it easy to implement. So why do I keep talking about CTE? 1.5 funding. And so if you can get, so a lot of schools are teaching this at the middle school, and then by the time they get to the high school, they're ready for that CTE funded class, and that's what's paying for their teachers, and that's what's paying for their computers. And so we were very intentional about making that happen. It was also built for this teacher right here. 80% of teachers are female and don't play video games. And so we made it very turnkey because you're not teaching video games. Why? Because the kids know how to play video games. But if you need a champion in your school. The champion doesn't have to be somebody that loves video games. It has to be somebody who loves kids. That's all you have to have. Right now, since Mike left, the champion that took over from Mike is probably worse than me when it comes to technology and computers and all of that stuff. But she loves kids, and so she is the champion.
And they're doing great. And she's able to get them online and do stuff every week in their class. So
Yes.
I'm glad that was able to continue.
And then we talked about the ESSER money. And so it's really about, what's our why? What's our why for kids? Why are we doing this? Because we have a group of kids that love to do it. That's why I say, I don't love video games, but I love people that love video games. And in 24 years, it's a silver bullet. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen to get kids to school. Questions? Hey. Yes, sir.
I watched your interview online, and I remember you saying that it's the hook that gets the kids into school, and then you keep them there all day.
Yes. Yes, so we say, offer it first block.
For 1 hour, and you keep
That's
them there.
exactly what we say. Well, it's a crisis right now. I don't know, like LA County Schools, they have 15,000 kids that have not logged on since March of 2020. They're projecting 3 million kids in the United States that they don't know where they're at. They don't know if they went online, they don't know if they're public, they don't know where they're at. And so I don't think that we're well, Wichita, I know Wichita does. I mean, I don't know Wellington, you're like Renwick. We know Mays pretty much knows where people are, but it is a crisis in the United States right now. But even in small schools, like Renwick, we're talking about it, it's like baby steps, I'm right here, and they have control. But most of the kids in Renwick are already in an activity also. We always say if you do like an informational night or an activity day or whatever, you're gonna have about 10% of your student population show up. And I mean, that number is on. So how many do you have in high school? 4. You probably have about 40 kids show up, between 30 and 50 kids show up.
And something I skipped over on the coaching piece, just
Yes.
give you a little bit of understanding. So 48 kids might be playing 8 different games. So the coach is the coach for all of those. So the coach doesn't necessarily have to know all the games, but they're gonna have to be there when all the games happen. So, and those may not happen on the same night. So what we did is we had student coaches that would just report to me. And I would kind of keep track of, I'd be there for when they played and everything, but they would actually handle the actual coaching because I didn't know every game and nobody will. So I'm pretty decent at chess and I'm pretty good at Overwatch, but other than that, I'm not very useful.
So how does this, is this typically done after school, or do they just do it during the class during?
So there's two things, so the curriculum is taught during school.
Right.
Then there's the after-school program, which would be the competitive
Okay.
piece, or the social piece, depending on how you want to structure it.
So do they typically like practice 4 days a week and then play, or they game?
We practice 2 days a week, and then they would play.
So how many, just like one match a week, or do you play?
Yeah, they would just play one match a week, and it would be usually from 4 to 5:30, depending on how the match went. I mean, that's the other thing that's kind of difficult when you communicate to parents, especially when there's transportation, is it's like, all right, we're playing Overwatch at 4. Well, they might be done at 4:15, depending on how good the other team is. They might not be done till 5:30, depending on how good the other team is. So there's some flexibility needed when you do the schedule, but.
Other things?
Any other questions? All right, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Or Penn and Teller, you can catch us at the Mirage next week.
Feel that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, it looks like the next thing on the agenda is the energy audit.
Yes. Previously, the board had discussed with ESP they had volunteered to do a free audit at our high school, as far as energy goes. And so they have finished their energy analysis. And so Brad Ray, who you've met before when we were discussing this, and his team is here to present their analysis. Thanks, Brad. Thank you. Also want to remind the board that their analysis was uploaded into your packet, so that's available for your review as well.
Just kind of, there we go, now I can play. We went and we met seems like a long time ago. And within that time, things happened. People were busy. We had a change in some of our structure within our company. And sometimes things are good and work out really well. Our project engineer for this is Mike Mahoney. He's back here. I didn't know Mike when we first started to work on the project. And Mike's wife is a teacher. During our first conversation, that's what Mike would talk about, was doing things for his wife. She's talking about the classroom, things she wants to do, things she sees. And he talks about that when we started going through your building. You know, and it became really quick evident that Mike had the same philosophy that we do. You know, we want to do what's best for kids and we want to do what's best for teachers. So it just worked out perfect that Mike is the person who has done the analysis. We have a data analysis person that did your data, looked at everything. Mike came aboard and looked at your facilities. And of course, you met Jeff last time, and Jeff has the same passion that we all have for kids. You know, we want this to be the best project you can have. At the time when we first came, you were looking more towards strategic plans and down the road. And we offered at that time that we would do a PEA, preliminary energy audit, for your district. Well, you came back and said, you know, the high school is the one that we're thinking about. That's the one that you talk about at the board. You know, and as a school board, good for you. You know, those are the things that you need to do is look into your utilities, look into your bills. You know, a lot of school boards, it's just paper. But when you get into this, there's very little things in a school that you can control when it comes to money. You know, you only get so much from your 51 or so mills. You get state funding. But you can't control, you know, salaries are a fixed cost. You're going to get your insurances, those are fixed costs. The only thing that you can really control and contribute money to your budget is utilities. So that's kind of when we start looking at this, you know, you're in a great place right now as a district. You know, we're going to show you some substantial savings that can happen just at the high school. Your capital outlay, you know, you get 63 cents on the dollar state aid on your capital outlay. That's fantastic. You know, when you get 63 cents for every dollar you put on the table, that's perfect. ESSER, you know, you get over $2 million in ESSER funds. You know, 20% of that has to go toward learning loss. But you start talking about the ESSER money, and the term that we've been working in Oklahoma talks about generational monies. And that's what the ESSER funds have come to be, are generational monies. You know, use the ESSER funds to impact, not just this year, not next year, but 10, 20 years down the road. So we start, you know, talking about that. And, you know, and it's not just schools with ESSER. Cities are the same way. You know, what's one of the big parts of the ARPA funds for cities are waters and sewer. Again, generational money. Do things now that can impact further on down the line. So what we're going to do tonight is Jeff is going to take you through and talk about the energy, what we found from your facilities with cost. He'll break down that numbers for you. Then Mike has toured your buildings, and Mike's going to talk to you. Again, this is a 35,000-foot view, but he's going to talk to you about things that he saw and he noticed when he toured your buildings. So with that, you're up.
Well, I might make one just slight change to what Brad said about the 35,000-foot view. You maybe notice that there's a lot of gray hair amongst the three of us up here, right? So when we do this preliminary analysis, Mike and I have known each other, long time, we'll just leave it at that, okay? And so when we go in and we do a preliminary analysis of your facilities, it's not actually a 35,000-foot view, it's maybe a 10,000-foot or so, because we've been doing this a long time. And so when we walk around and we view things, it's a pretty good, you can put your faith in what we're telling you tonight, okay? So you guys asked us to do a complementary preliminary energy analysis. The purpose of that is to just understand whether there is a viable opportunity for an energy savings project that would generate enough savings to fund a material amount of improvements in your facilities. And so to accomplish that, we have to do a few things. We have to look at a macro view of what you're spending utility-wise in your buildings and what that looks like, how it spans out. Is it in a realm of what would be reasonable for energy efficiency building, or is it higher or lower? Then we would know, is there things that we can do? The micro look is to have our folks come in and walk the facilities and get an understanding of what's there. And then really what we need to do is put together an understanding of what's the savings potential, how much can that savings fund and pay for over time, and what is the financial impact of that for your district. So that was our purpose in the preliminary analysis. the driving force for us is that in Kansas, there is enabling legislation that allows you as a school district to implement projects that are fully paid for by savings. And so we have a little, I don't know if you're following, we had a presentation. Did we send them the presentation or did we just hand it out to them? Okay, so this, I'm a believer that a picture says 1,000 words or whatever, right? So the objective of what we were trying to figure out for you all is, what are you spending today, and can we save enough that in the future, rather than sending all that money to the utility company, you invest some of that back in your students, right? And so that's the goal. And in looking at your utilities and your facility, we wanted to know how much can we save. And candidly, 30% is a small, that's a very conservative amount of what we feel like we can save in your high school. And the reason that we believe that is that if you look at the utility analysis, we went through your numbers, we evaluated your high school. It's about 190,000 square foot building, and you're spending about $380,000 in utilities in that building, okay? Candidly, what we have found, and we've done a lot of work in Kansas and Missouri throughout the Midwest, we've gotten a lot of high schools down to about $1.10, $1 a square foot. You're at almost $2 a square foot. So it doesn't, it's pretty easy to do the math there and understand, my goodness, there's a material amount of savings potential in that building. And that savings will stem from saving electricity, gas, and water, right? But if you look at your utilities, and this is one of the things that part of our utility analysis, again, we're taking this macro broad look, gosh, you got $330,000 of electric cost in that building alone. So just your electricity cost in that building is much higher than the total cost that we've been able to get a lot of high schools to when we've done energy projects for them. So right away, from a macro look, it's very clear that there's money to be had, there's money to be saved, okay? We try to break the energy use down between how much are you spending on, yes, sir?
Do you have any idea why our electricity is so high?
We have a very good idea as to why, and some of the later slides, and candidly, I'm gonna put a pause button on that because Mike has a long laundry list of things that we know can be done at your school that would generate savings to dramatically reduce that cost. Okay.
Who you said you toured the high school.
Yes.
Who actually showed you around the high school?
Grant, I'll leave that to them. Go ahead, Brad.
We started, and again, I'm bad at things. This was the person that works with Mike.
Adam, do you know?
Was it Mike Clifton?
Mike.
Yeah, Mike Clifton.
Yeah, he showed us around.
Our HVAC guy that works for us.
Yeah, then Mike Simpson, he was on vacation, but he actually came in and.
Does Mike know a lot about the high school?
Mike Clifton? Yes. Yeah.
Just been here
How
about a year.
long has he worked here?
He's been here for a couple of years
Year and a
now.
half, 2 years
Right
now.
in there, something like that, yeah.
So it helps a lot to have someone who knows the facility and show us around.
That was my question. I wanted to make sure that
Right.
we had somebody there that knew the facility.
That actually understood the facility. There's no question that the more information that the person who gives us the tour knows, the better the results from our audit, right? But another part of it is that because we were given access and we were allowed pretty full access, we got to see all of the heating and air conditioning equipment, we toured the whole school. So we have a very solid fundamental understanding of the systems that are in place and the things that can be done to those systems, either to retrofit or replace, to significantly reduce your utility costs. Does that make sense? And did I answer your question effectively?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. I think one of the thing that I want, if you take nothing else from this, kind of the lower right-hand corner of this utility analysis slide, that benchmark, where you guys are at is $2 a square foot. The 90 cents a square foot, that's not just our company saying, oh, this is where you should be able to be. That's national average and, more importantly, Midwest average. It's Kansas schools, that's where we've gotten schools, and other companies have gotten schools. So you should expect to be able to operate around that cost level, okay? And so there's a big opportunity for savings here. And that money is money that right now is just going out the door, right? You're sending it to the utility company, and you're not getting any value other than the school is operating, you've got lights, you've got heating and air conditioning, you've got a good environment for your students. But let's make it so that we improve that environment. The things that we're gonna do are not only gonna save energy, but they would also make a better environment for your students. And rather than sending all of that money to the utility company, you're gonna be investing a big percentage of that back in yourselves. And so that's what the objective is. The next slide, you know, we try to be fairly just cut and dry about what the opportunities are. There's about $87,000 if you only looked at, and so at the top we have energy program and holistic program. An energy program is if you only wanted to do those items that are fast payback, that have a really solid return on investment and can be achieved at a low cost, but you get a material amount of savings. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And under that type of an approach, you could save about $87,000 a year. If you took a little more holistic approach where you say, okay, we're going to also address some heating and air conditioning needs and renew some equipment that is a little older or at the end of its life or isn't functioning the way it needs to, a minimum of $130,000 a year of savings is achievable just at the high school. One of the things that's interesting to me is that at your high school, it's $380,000 roughly of utility costs. Your total district expense is about $750,000 to $770,000. So almost half of your cost is in that one building for utilities. And so it certainly makes sense to focus on that and you know, get some improvements there. In today's world, with interest rates being so low, the way that a project like this can work is you actually don't have to pay capital to get the improvements that generate these savings. We can help you secure the money up front, and then we guarantee that the savings would cover the cost of repaying that money over time. And with interest rates right now, we're doing a project this out at Stafford schools, and they got an interest rate of 1.6%. My goodness, you know, that's just crazy low. It's almost like they're being given money, right? Yes, ma'am.
I just, skimming ahead here, and it just, says, analyze indoor air quality and implement long-term health and energy saving improvements. Some of these things, I mean, I don't know that much what ESSER funds can be spent for, but to me, like check the humidity, one of these things says, you're talking about air quality.
Yes.
Could ESSER funds be used for some of these things?
Absolutely. And so, candidly, what a lot of we're working with a lot of schools in Kansas and Missouri right now, and what they're choosing to do is use ESSER funds to pay for those improvements that are indoor air quality related, which can be heating and air conditioning equipment, the air handling units, rooftop units, and so forth, adding things that affect your ventilation rates and so forth. Use the ESSER funds to pay for that, and then we still quantify the savings associated with those things, and so then that gives you the ability to then go and get money to do even more things, right? And so we have folks that are addressing a wide array of long-term deferred maintenance issues that they haven't been able to come up with the money for, and that's why we're saying this is generational money. It gives you the ability to really holistically look at your facilities and, man, you don't have to wait 5 years. You can get this stuff done now, today, and really make an impact for your students today and far into the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're trying to promote, right? I ironically, just in the high school, the savings associated with what we could do to generate savings in that one building, it could, if you're looking only at the fast payback things, it could be $1 million worth of improvements that could be paid for. And up to $1.5 million if you do a holistic project. So think about it, that's stuff that you can get done in your buildings without having to ask the community for more taxes or anything like that. It just creates a funding stream out of your existing budget that allows you to demonstrate, fiscal responsibility to your community. And that's why this is a passion of ours. We've been doing this a long time, and we're excited about the opportunity that has presented itself based on this audit. That's the high side and kind of the financial impact. Mike can absolutely, if you've gone on and you've looked at, here's the facility needs and there's some opportunities, there's a long list of things that could be addressed in the high school that would make for a better environment, a safer environment for your students, and also greatly reduce the cost to operate those buildings. And so it's kind of a win-win. It's a great opportunity that's in front of us.
So I'll talk a little bit about the facility needs, and then on the next page are some opportunities. And again, these lists are not exhaustive. I mean, this is something that we toured the building in a few hours and walked through most all the mechanical rooms and looked at all the systems. And he's right. My wife's a first grade teacher, and so she's always pointing, shaking her finger at me about not to do things in the school that are detrimental to what she's trying to do, because it's hard enough to teach the kids anyway. And so we have some priorities. Anytime we do anything in the schools, the first one's safety. So whatever we dream up, if it has anything to do with making a place not as safe as it should be, then it gets crossed off. It doesn't even make the list. Next thing is environmental. So if there is some really good environmental, so we all know what temperature is, we all know what humidity is, these types of things. So that environment has to be maintained, or if it's not there right now, a lot of times we'll bring it to that place. And it might be that a couple of classrooms might be suffering and some are perfect, but we'll try to make it all perfect when we go through the systems. And so that's the second thing. So we don't do anything that degrades the environment at all. And actually we try to bring up the entire school to a real plus environment. And then lastly, if we have not degraded the safety or the environment in the space, then we try to save money through the use of saving utilities. And utilities, as Jeff pointed out, it's just money that you're paying the utility. I don't really hear work for the utility company, but anyway.
Full disclosure, I do.
Most of the utility companies are really trying to conserve too, right? I mean, that's, as a society, as a community, we just really need to lower the amount of utility use everywhere and be as efficient as possible. And so we can help you do that. The school can do these things on their own. We're coming up alongside kind of as a tool. And that's why I say that the lists here are just kind of maybe even something to be an just kind of whet your appetite for some things that could be done. And the facility needs, what we ran into when we walked through it was there is some humidity issues in just a few of the places, right? So we'd like to try to take care of those. Not everywhere, just in a few places. There's a lot of runtime that could probably be reduced. Now, I'm going to be kind of because I'm kind of the conservative one. So when I hear them say, "Oh, we could make $1.5 million," I'm like, "Well, I don't know yet." So we're in the car. I'm like, "Okay, I need some more time here to investigate further and get some details." But this is really preliminary. But most of the time, as Jeff said, it's not our first rodeo, so to speak. So when we see things like this, it's kind of the smoking gun a little bit. And so you probably have some opportunity here. We'd love to help you try to gain control of what's going on in the high school. And your other buildings too. We were offered the idea of looking at the high school. But I would say we could look at all the buildings and make sure that the district is operating efficiently. Okay, so some ideas, and I don't know if anybody has any questions about the ideas just to start off with, and I'm not gonna go through every single one. You can read if you have glasses on. You can make it a little smaller for the older.
Even with
crowd.
glasses, I can hardly do it.
You gotta hold it a little further away. The first two are kind of recommissioning, and so that is, when I toured the high school is an awesome high school. I go through schools every day and all day, that's all I do. I walk schools, when I leave here, I'm gonna go to Newton, okay? For tomorrow, I'm gonna walk to school tomorrow. So I'm in and out of schools all day long, and so I know systems pretty well, and I know you had asked a question, about who showed you around, and again, this might not be my second time I've been in the building, right? When I got in high school, awesome systems. And so I recognize the systems right away. Actually, I recognize the engineer who designed the system. I used to do a lot of that in my younger days. Systems were great. And so the bones of the building is awesome. And so the first things I had on the list was recommissioning. So that is, I probably wouldn't replace a lot of the systems there. I'd sort of like tune them up. Like you take your car in, it's not doing very good in miles per gallon. It's using too much gasoline, so you take it and get tuned up. So many of the systems could remain like they are, they just need to be tuned up a little bit. And then some of the systems, when they were put in, were spot on, were perfect, but today we got a better way to do it. And so the boilers that were put in were these enormous boilers, and at the time they were probably very efficient. But today, we have boilers that are much more efficient than what you have there now. So that would be another place, and I think that's probably a little further down the list here.
On the boilers, they were put in like 2004, but one of the units isn't working. Is there a reason why?
One of the units was replaced last year, is that right? Yeah.
So, but we still don't have one that's working right now, based on this report.
That was not.
No, one is working. It was working when I was there.
Yeah, but it says here, it says one of the units is not working.
Oh, you have two boilers. I'm sorry.
That's my question.
I don't even know mine.
Why isn't the
Why
other
isn't the other
working?
At the time, I think it was down for service.
I believe they're both active, but you're not actually having to use them both.
And during the summers, usually when you're doing maintenance and service on them.
Right.
You're only some backup in the event that, what happened
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I got your question there or not. Things like freezers, I mean, there's just some great technology, and especially computers that are available. So a freezer, I don't know about the one at home, mine does this at home, it goes through the defrost cycle whether I ask it to do it or not. And many of the coolers and freezers in schools, and many buildings for that matter, go through the defrost cycle whether they need to or not. But there's some great controls now that have to only go through the defrost cycle where it actually heats up, right? To get the frost off it, only when it's needed. So there's new sensors available to do that. Lighting, lighting's an easy one. People do that at home. Probably everybody in here has put LEDs in their house, right? And that's great technology and really reduces the wattage. And then the last thing, so the first part of the list, actually all the bullets, except for the very last one, are about improving what you already own and making it more efficient. And then the last item is about maybe an opportunity to look at a way to create, well, electricity is an easy one. I don't know, I'm not going to create natural gas, but we're going to create electricity, right? You do that with photovoltaic, you put out a solar array and create your own. And then that can be done for educational purposes, or it can be done to actually power part of the building. I remember the map, and you're not really in the purple, which is the high wind, but not too far from here. It is high wind, but you could do some winter. And you could do that again for educational purposes, or you could do it to power part of the building. So the very last thing is to create electricity, right, as opposed to just trying to save it. Any questions? And again, the list is not exhaustive. This is just kind of one that kind of came to mind as I'm walking through, taking some notes down. But the next step would be to really do a much more in-depth, very exhaustive search of the building, and then come back with a lot more details, take a deeper dive. Does that make sense? Any questions?
So again, I guess I'll make just a minor adjustment to a comment that was made by Mike. He's right, I maybe am a little more aggressive. Ironically, we're both engineers, but I've been on the business side long enough that now I have to be a little more aggressive. But if you go back to the utility analysis, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that you're spending about $2 a square foot, and with the savings that we've projected in the table, we're showing taking you down to about $1.40 a square foot. And candidly, we've gotten a lot of schools down to below $1 a square foot. So I, as the maybe more aggressive person, but when I look at the numbers that we've presented to you all, they're actually very conservative. And unless there is, and so one of the things that I was not sure of, sometimes in high schools like this, maybe there's a huge VOAG section that's part of your building, but you have a separate VOAG building. So I don't know. There's some, I didn't want to claim that we would get you down to 90 cents a square foot if there's some smoking gun here that we don't know about because we didn't do quite a thorough. But man, saying that we'll get you down to $1.40 a square foot, that's really quite conservative. So I think the numbers that we've presented here, you can rest assured we'll
Yeah, and our challenge would be to even
do better.
Would be to have Wellington be better than most all our other customers, right?
So
to get even below that, even below the average.
So the question I've got is, how do you apply, I mean, nobody pays the same rates for electricity, so how can you say this, we're gonna get you here because we got other schools here when the rates play into that?
Yeah, so that's, in an attempt to be brief, we didn't provide all of the data that's part of our utility analysis. The other piece of a benchmark is the BTU per square foot, that's the amount of energy consumed regardless of rate, okay? And candidly, we look at both, and if your dollar per square foot is really high, but your BTU per square foot is right on normal, then we know that we need to be looking at what your rate is and how can we adjust your rate to get you back to a normal rate, right, that most other people are paying. But in your case, we looked and both the BTU and the cost per square foot are really high. So we know it's not just a rate thing, okay? And if it were just a rate thing, then we would probably have led with, maybe you should be looking at solar or wind or one of these, renewable energy sources, or apologize if talk to your utility company and say, give us a better rate. Now, candidly, some of the things that we have seen in the past is maybe sometimes people are on a large general service instead of a medium or a small, and so that there are rates that it's part of our analysis for you would be to thoroughly dive into your utility rates and understand, are you on the best rate for the way you are using your energy? And that becomes part of our analysis to make sure that we want to save the BTU, but we also want to minimize your dollar cost per BTU, right?
So what you're saying is, dollar-wise aside, you can guarantee us the 20% kilowatt hour usage on the electricity?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when we put our guarantee together, that's exactly what we guarantee, is the energy usage, not the rate. Because ironically, if a rate goes up, the amount of savings for each kilowatt hour that we save you actually increases. So the amount that we're saving is better. But regardless of how much we're gonna reduce your energy, you're still gonna be, usually the amount that you're gonna continue to spend to condition the building is more than the amount that we're saving. So your total cost would go up even though the savings magnitude also, does that make sense? It's kind of candidly, that's a real tough one to try to get people squared away with. But yes, we absolutely we would evaluate the BTU, the amount of energy consumed, and that's what we guarantee. And then the rate may or may not go up or down, but we guarantee that we'll get you the savings from an energy consumption standpoint that we save.
From an energy perspective, engineering wise, we work in units of energy. And then at the very end, we multiply by the rate. So any savings that we have, we're always targeting KW electricity or consumption, KWH, how many you used over the hour, cubic feet of natural gas, gallons of water. Then at the end, we have to agree to a rate. Probably none of us have a crystal ball, but whatever rate you're paying now is as good as any, and we multiply by that rate at the end. So that's kind of where these numbers came from in our chart. But we start out always with the units because that is something we can control.
Right.
Yeah, and we all can measure, right?
Question for Mike, you said that the 2004 technology that's out there was good at the time. Now, 17 years later, there's better technology. And that's basically what you want to do is replace with 2021 technology, and that's where the savings is that right?
That's one of the places where some savings are, yeah. So in the where you make heating hot water in the boiler, that system, the boilers that you have now are functional and they work, but the amount of gas that you use the BTUs required to heat the water, there's just new technology and through condensing boilers. Yeah. And so it's just, what you have now is, probably on a good day, it's running, let's say 70%, and the new boilers are up over 90. It's just new technology.
So you're estimating about $1 million worth of improvements.
Yeah, $1 million to $1.5 million, depending on the term of the debt.
And you said that 80 to 85% is construction, and other 15 to 20 is, I guess, goes to you guys?
Yeah, and so, yes, it comes to us, but that doesn't mean that we're making 15 or 20%. If we would implement a project for you, we have a construction manager that's on site and we manage all of the subcontractors. We provide oversight of all of the installation, and so we also provide training and commissioning on the systems that get installed. Yes, and the way that we work is we take an open book approach to all of the contracts and all the projects that we do. So you would see what the bids are from the subcontractors, you would see what services we're offering, and you would see how much you're paying. And candidly, we're open to negotiating those, and making it be the right amount. So.
We just got through spending $1 million on the high school to fix the masonry.
Yeah, I understand. And I think maybe one of the key differences between now, I think that's important, tuck pointing and doing the things necessary to make sure that the structural integrity of the building is maintained. You want that building to last not just 20 years, but you want it to last for much longer than that, right? But that is a cost that just allows the building to maintain its functionality. The things that we're suggesting, it actually is going to generate savings that creates a positive cash flow for the district and so it improves the environment, improves the systems, improves the learning environment for your students, but it pays for it. And so that's a pretty powerful thing.
We've struggled with the electric bill at the high school ever since it was built.
Yeah, I understand.
It's always been high.
Yeah.
We've always thought that it was the controls perhaps, and we struggled to try to get that fixed, and we still haven't got it done.
And you're still chasing your tail. Yeah, and I think maybe if we don't achieve what we say we're going to achieve, we have to write you a check. So we're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna only tell you, here's what we can accomplish for you, and it'll work.
So as I'm sitting here shivering tonight, wanting to borrow somebody's coat, I'm like freezing your tail off. I think there's an easy way to conserve electricity.
Yep.
It's called that thermostat.
Yep.
And I think, no disrespect, guys, but I don't need an engineering company to come in and tell me to go up on the thermostat a little bit. I think it would make a huge difference. I've got a daughter that's in the high school and they go to the gym and have to put on sweatshirts because they're freezing. I think there's a little bit of personal responsibility that we have in the district to try to do a bit better job on that.
Completely
It's my
concur.
2 cents.
Yeah, and candidly, that is part of our program, is an educational and a behavioral training thing. I'm gonna say this absolutely not with any disrespect at all, because I agree. People should be able to do that, right? How long has the school been there? And we can look back at the cost to operate that high school, and it's not.
I've been complaining about it for 8 years, so.
Yeah, and so, I think maybe one of the things that we can bring to the table is that as an outside company, we can help implement those things that should be pretty straightforward, but oftentimes are pretty difficult.
One thing that I did notice on your chart, which great information, guys, good job putting this together, but why would our highest electric cost be in July?
That's what
That's just what I was looking at.
But that makes no sense. I mean,
It makes absolute sense if the
Yeah, it
thermostat
doesn't-
isn't being,
yeah,
boom,
but-
see, so this is why, this is candidly a big part of why we're confident that we're gonna be able to generate the savings is you have good systems in your buildings, they're not being operated quite efficiently. And so there are some fairly low-hanging fruit things that can be done, and that is our job, is to identify and enact and put in place the things that are gonna make sure that you don't see that moving forward.
I think it's pretty sad if you've been worried about this for 8 years.
We've been talking about it for
I know, I mean, that's crazy. Like, how can something not be fixed in 8 years?
Well, we've had people come in and put control systems in place.
And my kids come home too.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys, it's hot. How are you gonna put a sweatshirt on? I mean, you guys are gonna sweat to death today. And I do have grandkids in my school who are just as important to me as my own children. So regardless of why I'm sitting here, it is because of my 11 grandkids in this school system. So if it's just that, why haven't we done it in the last 8 years?
We tried.
We tried to go in and say, hey, you guys turn the thermostats down?
Well, we hired a
You know what?
So
And-
we just keep hiring, we keep letting them come back.
So one thing I'll say to that,
I'm just saying, I like what you, I mean.
Well, our experience has been, without accountability, you'll just continue to chase, right?
I can't
And so
imagine.
having someone be accountable, to make sure that the savings that we all know should be achievable, are achieved, you enhance the opportunity that you're gonna actually be successful in implementing.
Well, one of the things we said on the stage at the first meeting about COVID was, it was brought up by one of the speakers that we haven't done anything with our ventilation or anything like that. And this would be an opportunity to fix some of those things. And we said this was the year, or Adam said we were gonna do it this year, look at that part of our services to help with COVID in that situation. So I don't think turning a thermostat down is going to.
Candidly, ventilation is it's a key component of life safety and health safety in your facilities. And it's one of the largest causes of cost in terms of what it takes to condition a facility and make it functional for your students. To be safe, you have to bring in fresh, clean outside air, but you bring in hot in the summer or cold in the winter air, and you have to mechanically heat or cool that air, you're spending money. You're churning out the utilities. So you've got the CDC saying you need to greatly increase your outside air and your ventilation rates. Well, that's going to increase your costs, right? So you have to balance, and part of, Mike's a way smarter engineer than I am, and he's stuck with it for a long time. Part of our role is to understand the technologies that allow you to make sure that you have a safe, comfortable environment while minimizing the amount of cost that it takes to achieve that environment.
And there are technologies out there that enable you to provide that comfort and the safety and the health in a low-cost manner. And that's what our job is to help you get there.
So, right, that question. Dr. Kern, can we have a couple degrees up on that thermostat again, because I'm freezing to death here. Thank you.
And Pat had a good point too, as part of ESSER, as part of ESSER, there is money that is available to do what we're talking about here on doing an audit. I think you budgeted actually $22,000 for energy audits, and that's specifically identified in the ESSER funds. Then also do ESSER, it's not just, you just don't go out and say, okay, we want to do this, this, and this. As part of ESSER, we're dealing with the federal government. And they're everything from Davis-Bacon, prevailing wages, 40-hour wages. There's all kinds of different forms and procedures you have to go through in order to use ESSER federal monies. And having been a superintendent as long as I want, I spent a lot of time with special education and federal money and knowing how to do what we do with that. So that's another service that we bring with ESSER.
We talked a lot longer than that.
No, that's all right. I appreciate the information. Appreciate you guys bringing it to us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to do it. It's, appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you. Good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Adam, looks like the next thing is Bank of Commerce sign. That's all good. Yes, JC, come on up, poor guy. You still back, Carter? You white, you still here?
Just giving us something, you should have been first.
I didn't know it was gonna go that long. Poor JC just wants to give the district something.
This is a good four-letter word. This is a GIFT. FREE that we noticed originally. That was a monochrome sign 7 years ago. It didn't work, so we stepped up and installed the first sign that's there now, and it was a retrofit. As most retrofits go, it was a retrofit. So we have a proposal to totally redo the sign and keep as much of the original as we can, which is the brick base, you'll see on the pictures, and reinstall if you so choose. I think you showed the picture.
Yes, you have, we uploaded a picture of what JC would like to donate in the packet. And I want to say while we're at this, Bank of Commerce has been such an amazing partner to the district and donated so much, and so I definitely want JC to feel our love tonight based on all the things that they have done for us over time. But so I definitely want to get him up here to represent that as well. But that picture is in your packet for you to look at, and essentially Bank of Commerce would be donating the sign itself, and then the district would need to spend a little bit of time and money to reconfigure that piece so that it did fit the sign. And so we would be needing to do that piece if the board accepted the donation of the LED sign.
So we have to build a stone column.
Yep, stone column off to the side to support it, and with a cap there, and then tie it into the base of the brick there. That brick already exists there, so.
That's nice looking.
Yeah, sure.
Compared to the one at the doctor's offices, what size is it? Because I'm not very good at, visually looking. 'Cause when I look at it-
John and I went around and measured them this summer. The libraries is 3 by 7. This would be at 4.5 feet by about 8.5 feet. So it's a foot taller and a foot long, little over a foot longer than the libraries. It's 6 inches taller, about a foot shorter than the one at Memorial Auditorium. It's taller this way than Panhandles. It's about 6 inches shorter. We try to go to a 1-to-2 aspect ratio because the graphics are much better when you go to that aspect ratio. The doctors, I didn't measure those. John left that to college. So.
That looks like it's.
I think it'll be awesome. Thank you.
very much so.
Are you taking action on that tonight, Adam, or is that?
It's up to the board, we can bring it back to you
Sure.
next month, either way, it's in discussion tonight.
I think we have.
I think we have to set where I was at, that's what I wrote up.
Yeah.
Up to the board.
The Ryan Elders class too, masonry, they've done a
We-
good job.
we're act-
They've done a good job with everything else.
We've actually been talking to them
Yeah.
about seeing what at least pieces of this they can do.
Yeah.
I guess, what is the time frame you're looking at on this, Jason?
Well, it'll say we insure it because we own it. But if you took action this week, we could probably get it out between semesters.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
Just rough idea of the cost of the modifications and.
Of the Mason.
Yeah, I don't know that we have that all together yet, because we're still working on how much the class can do, Mr. Elder's class can
Okay.
do, and that would definitely change versus us hiring a mason or something like that, so. I'd have to get that to the board.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'd have to get that to the
Better
board.
with-
That'd be better to get numbers on that.
Yeah.
So we kind of know what we're at least going to.
Yeah, I don't want to miss one. I mean, I love that.
Didn't you have some numbers in here? I don't remember it now.
Not based off of the reconfiguration, that's still in process.
Bank of Commerce was giving us a free sign, so I don't know that just the masonry tax.
I know, I just,
We've done other things with them. I'm just gonna make a motion that we accept the gift from.
I second it.
Okay, got a motion and a second that we what? One more time?
That
Okay,
we-
what was that motion?
That we accept the gift from, National Bank of Commerce and, take care of the masonry after we see what our, class can do.
Okay, does everyone understand what the motion is? Good, so we got a motion and a second, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Okay,
Thank you, JC.
You stand here.
okay, next thing on the agenda is WHS baseball travel.
Yes, Mr. Jenkins.
Yeah. After this one?
Yeah. Go outside and Last guy gave us a sign, what are you giving us?
Yeah, nothing that cool, nothing that cool. Hopefully some nice All right, so we are hoping to take our coaching staff to Chicago in January. One of our goals, taking over the program last year, that one of the goals we want to implement going forward, something I'm a big believer in, is being a lifelong learner. So if I'm bringing the same thing to our athletes every single day for 10 years, they're not getting better, I'm not getting better, and we're not seeing success as a program as a result of it. So one thing we would like to do is be able to take our staff, our coaching staff, to Chicago. It's the biggest convention in the country. I've been 2 other times. It's amazing. The speakers we get to hear, the stuff that we get to take away from it, the networking we get to talk to other coaches, and the relationships you build from it. But it's truly remarkable. Everything that we would be doing would be coming out of our baseball account. So it'd be nothing that we're asking you guys for, except for to be able to take a school vehicle to get us up there. But like I said, everything would come out of there. There would be 3 of our 4 coaches that are going, that are able to go. So we have that in place. Plus hotel costs for the 3 days is all listed there for you. But it's January 6th to the 9th, so coming up in January, and that is our goal. I wanted to run it by you guys first and get it approved. That's something that we could do. Yes, the question.
Ryan, your baseball account, that comes from fundraisers.
Yes, sir.
That you've had.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we don't, we try to avoid, or I try to avoid in the spring to ask the kids to sell anything. So we work a ton of events. We host a youth tournament. We hosted a ton of events. Teams from all over the country this summer here in town went way better than I'd ever expected. We had teams from all over that came in and played. It's the beauty of having one of the most historic parks in the country, let alone the state of Kansas. So people came in. We also just this last Saturday hosted a golf tournament. That's how we kind of get some of our funds. So we try to do that as much as possible.
Are you wanting to go to Arizona spring break?
That is something else we're looking at, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. That is a goal, that would be our entire team. We would have to be better off than we are right now financially to be able to do it. But that is a goal. There are some other programs, even around here that do that they
Taylor,
take them down.
when he coached in Oklahoma, though, he actually was expecting the baby, so he didn't get to go, but they took their whole team.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's, beginning of the season, over spring break, trip, and we would take vans down, pull the trailer, and load up all of our gear and practice down there for 5 days and go to spring training games. And just get in that environment of preparing for our season, around, the best environment in the country, along with being together with only our guys, which I think is so big to build the bond that we need. That's something else that's on our agenda, hopefully in the future, if it goes well the rest of this fall.
I think it's exciting that you're wanting to go learn something new and different and to improve.
Absolutely.
And not just the same old that, happens. So you're really just asking for vans?
Just one vehicle, probably the car, it's only 3 of us coaches, so.
Oh, I didn't know we had a car.
Get it out there, or a Suburban, or whatever. Yeah, so that's pretty simple. Just wanted to make sure that we got it all approved before we spent the money to make sure.
Okay. Car and gas.
No, we could pay for the gas out of our own account. Yes, ma'am, we could pay for the gas out of our own account, no big deal.
That's consistent with what the board's done in the past.
Yes.
Yeah,
It is.
This vehicle, yes, sir.
So I move that we allow the coaches, baseball coaches, to use the van of the district to go to Chicago on January 6th through the 9th.
Okay, got a motion?
Should we change the van to a car? You want a car?
It doesn't make sense.
I didn't know we had a car.
A vehicle.
A vehicle.
Whatever works best for you.
Whatever saves the most gas.
I hope it's not a bus.
That's all. Whatever saves the
We got a
most.
motion and a second on the table, so all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Okay.
Well, thank you guys.
Have a good trip.
I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for doing it.
That's right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we've had a request for a short break to kind of stretch our legs, maybe warm up a little bit.
Yep.
So it's got to. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Okay, 5. Let's go 5.
Okay.
We got business to attend.
We'll get our next presentation set up while you guys are going.
So technicality wise, do we need to recess or do we need to just stay in open session and return?
Shelby, do you know the answer to that? We may have to recess, I guess.
Okay,
Real
so
quick.
we will recess for 5 minutes and return at, what would that be, Tom?
Oh, gosh.
8:12. 13.
board discussed this, the board specifically requested to gain further information on the current financial literacy curriculum that is running at both the middle school and the high school. And so we were asked to bring that information back. And so Renee Case, who is our CTE coordinator, and Jason Halling, who's principal at the middle school, are going to help present that this evening. And Karen Cornejo, who usually teaches that at the middle school, could not be here tonight, so Jason's filling in for her. Yeah.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, so we utilize a program, and I apologize for having my back to you right now. But we have this program that we utilize at the middle school. It's by the Next Gen Personal Finance program. It's a curriculum that's provided by, I don't know who actually promotes it, but we don't pay a lot for it. I think it's free, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a free program. It has a curriculum that's associated with it. They go into the resources. It's a variety of things other than just the curriculum. But it's a 9-week curriculum that is intended 45 to an hour sessions. So it takes us a little longer with 43-minute classes, 42-minute classes. It takes us a little longer to get through it. There are also extension activities that we have through it. You can see the labels. Each 9 weeks, there are 9 modules. Starts with basics with like money in our lives, consumer skills. One of the ones that I find particularly interesting, not just credit and savings, we talk about that, but then we go into the investing module. And in the investing module, these are all lessons inside and embedded in it. It talks about why investing, what the stock market is, stocks versus bonds, diversification. And then there's a process that they can go in and they can start investing in their own businesses. Ms. Cranmer, when she taught it last year, she talked about M&Ms, Mars, the product, and then takes it into the Mars company and being able to invest in Mars, and then what the profits and losses that they would experience, how that would work against your dividends on your returns, on what you can buy a stock for. They look at stock prices, they run trackers and things like that. So it's a pretty fluid program. There's a lot of resources that they have with it that we don't have to pay for, and the kids get a really neat taste of what it's like. And I'll just say this as a personal plug, because I kind of like the program. Our current billionaires and millionaires, 25, I know they're 25 and under, is what we're seeing. The most explosion that we're seeing out of our personal finance are kids they don't have risk, right? They don't have that fear of risk. I'm worried about my retirement right now and what that's going to look like, and I don't want to throw it away. These kids are putting $1,000 in and turning it into $1 million in less than a year. I mean, it's been an interesting deal, and that's even through the pandemic. So I've heard my nephew, who is 19, he's already started to do this. He's turned $1,000 into $10,000 in less than 6 months. So it's his risk factor. He's not worried about it. He's just playing with the stock market, and he's not at a casino, so it's kind of cool. He's actually used quite a bit of the things that taught in this program on a basic level. Now, I want to sell that part. This is a basic level. That's why it's the middle school program, and they start with savings and they start with credit. I mean, I think that's probably something that every kid needs to understand is what the risk of credit is. I know my 16-year-old thinks that the debit card is a credit card and that it's got unlimited funds on it until I don't load it up. So he's like, why didn't my card work? Because you don't have any money. So he doesn't understand that part, and I wish he would have a class like this. And they didn't have that where he was operating.
Eighth grade, I'm sorry, I didn't know about myself.
It's at the 8th grade level, financial literacy for that. Ms. Cornejo teaches that. All right, that's all I have from the middle school part of it, and I'll turn it over to Renee because it builds right in. She uses the same NGPF program that leads into the high school curriculum, but it's much more in depth.
Good evening. Okay, I'm gonna switch back over here really quick. All right. So let's try this. Okay. So Mr. Holling just went over the fact that we use the NGPF, and there's a middle school level to it, and it also moves into high school. So they utilize the 9-week program. We're looking at what we would like to do. Currently, we offer it as a semester level course, personal finance, and we would like to move that to be a required graduation requirement for students. So students right now have to take a credit of business for graduation. We would like half of that credit to be in personal finance is what we would like to do. And then the other half obviously could be at their choice. When we look at the high school, not only do we use NGPF, but you'll see some other signage up here. We do use what's called EverFi, and it also covers the basics. There's no 7 modules in that particular program. When a student finishes that, they actually receive a certificate that says they are considered to be financially literate. So they have to score a 75% or higher on each module as they complete it. So it usually takes about 30 to 40 minutes per module. So we just kind of fill that in between the rest of the instruction. That's sponsored by Impact Bank and has been sponsored by Impact Bank for us for 15 years that I know of. And we've used it it was first introduced, the high school, wasn't that built in 2005? Is that when we moved in there?
2004, 2005 was the first
Okay.
school year.
That's when Impact Bank approached us and we started with EverFi. So it was the same year at the high school. We moved into that. And so we've incorporated it into different classes, various business courses, but this would allow us the opportunity to offer it to everybody and that everybody would have that information. The other thing, we also play the stock market game. The students go through it and they get $100,000 in which they can invest with in a simulated market, obviously. And we've actually had one state winner by doing that. It's been a while since we've had that, but that was kind of an exciting thing. So we've gone from offering that in accounting classes to we've moved it into the personal finance class now. So that's something that they do as well. We also use what's called Knowledge Matters. That is, I might back up and say like NGPF and EverFi and the stock market, those 3 resources are free. We don't pay anything for that. Knowledge Matters is not free. We pay a license for that, and the license is renewed every 5 years. And it's approximately, I think, $1,200 to renew it for 5 years. And it offers a simulation. So it provides a variety of, let me see if I click on this one so you can kind of get a feel for it too. If we scroll down. Oh, is this one touchscreen? Yay. Yeah, there it is, right over there to the side. You can see the lessons, what they include. And what you're going to find is that the information that's at the middle school level, you're going to see some overlap, but the content within the overlap is very different. So you're going to see some very fundamental things presented, obviously, at 8th grade, but then you're going to see some more details that come in at the high school level. So the other thing that I thought I might share with you is these are just some things that students can learn through personal finance, should learn through personal finance, and this is information that I picked up from NGPF as well. This is some of the things that they want to make sure that all students, and for me personally, I think the thing that I like a whole lot about it is just managing student loan debt. You know, when those students go to post-secondary training, how do we make sure that they understand what their options are when it comes to financing their higher education? And so for me, that's one of the areas that's just kind of one of my favorites to go over with the students, make sure that they're comfortable with that as well. Some of the benefits, I think what I liked about it was similar to what, Mr. Halling said. You have young people starting 17, 19 years of age. They don't have that risk factor. They're not afraid. Like we learn that as we get older. But this tells us that if a student has gone through some personal finance, that they are able to save, they are less to be compulsive spenders. It says we are ready to invest, and we know how to use those credit cards. All right, so I think all 4 of those are very positive things. We want every student to have that opportunity. So when you look at the whole solution for Wellington, you've got options. You can have no course, you can embed it, which is, what we're doing right now. And we also embed it in classes, but it's a semester elective. But we want to move all the way over to the right where it's going to be a semester required course for all students. So every student receive that information and not just the ones that happen to take the personal finance course. So That's all I had for you guys this evening, and I'm here to answer any questions. Mrs. Vaughn is here as well. If there's anything I can't address, she can help me with that too, so. Questions, concerns?
It's something just talking with the kids that I know that's the age that I thought to myself, God, you don't know that. How you gonna learn that? You know, I just think it's a great thing myself.
I currently am working with seniors in Crusader Connections, that's our advisory group time. And right now, we're preparing for student-led conferences, obviously, and as the senior group is preparing for that, one of the tasks they've been assigned is, what are your choices, your post-secondary choices? And in that presentation, you know, what's the admissions criteria? What is, you know, application information look like? But more importantly, what's the cost and what's your plan, you know, to address that cost? How are you going to meet that? And so, you know, I'm just thinking of one student in particular I'm working with, and, you know, he's looking at something from everything from maybe a $7,000 cost per year up to a $30,000 cost. That's a big difference, you know, and so the difference is how do you pay for that and how do you manage that debt? And so, lots of good conversation, but you know, the 13 that I work with, when I look at how many of them have had personal finance, out of 13, only one of them has taken that course. And so, you know, so, yeah, you're asking to make a lot of choices, decisions on limited info.
You said that presently one credit is required in business.
Yes.
And you're proposing that half of that credit would be financial literacy.
Yes.
What do most kids take as their one credit?
Well, we got lots of choices. I mean,
Is there one that, you know, they
that
think
just
is the
stands
easiest, the
out.
better, you know, I just to get this out of the way?
We have a lot of students that take digital media. You know, they work with either Steve or they may work with Brian Jenkins. Yeah, and it's a great opportunity. We have some that will take web page design, some that will take media tech where they make banners for the school district, that kind of stuff. We have some that will take accounting, yay accounting. And, you know, so there's lots of choices that they can take. It's just, to say that there's one that stands out over the other, you know.
So this is a class that they would have to have it, require them to graduate. Is there a set year that is, you know, will just be offered to juniors? Is it, they can take it?
Oh, that's a
sophomore,
good question.
senior?
I did not
Do they
say
have any
that.
options?
I think that you'd want to offer it to your juniors first. And then if they didn't make it that junior year, let them take it again their senior year. But I definitely not freshmen. I don't think that they're ready
classes
for
you just
that.
mentioned are awesome, and I know lots of kids do like to take those because it's the digital and it's the.
But I think you want to start with the junior class.
To just have to do it 1 year, you know, I would hope it'd be, you know, multiple years at least that they would have the opportunity.
And one thing that we talked about too is, you know, would that change the schedule any, you know, as far as who teaches what? And right now, Mrs. Buchanan is the one that's teaching personal finance. And, you know, I don't work directly with schedules, but I would say, yes, you're going to have more than 2 sections of it each year. My guess is you probably would need to have at least 4 sections offered. So would that mean that somebody else might help teach? Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be very doable.
Good discussion. Any more questions for this case?
Mr. Holman? Weren't you gonna apply for something, or went through something that you?
Oh, yes, there is a grant that's associated with this.
Like make a motion now to
Yes.
get it, so you can get
Yes,
going?
and you know, I think the last time in August, you guys had asked us, or July, what we thought we might spend the grant on because there's no ties to it as far as how you spend it. And you know, the more I think about it, I like the curriculum that we have. I don't see the need to buy more curriculum. What I do see the need for is professional development to be able to incorporate financial literacy, not just at 8th grade, not just for a graduation requirement, but something that would work for K through 12. So if we could find somebody, you know, at each elementary school that would be our go-to person for financial literacy, and then be able to use that money to pay them a stipend to help make sure that it actually gets implemented into that building, and do that all the way through the middle school, I think that would be,
Well, I think several elementaries.
that would be amazing.
Several elementaries, I don't know if it's 4th or 5th, you know, they're doing kind of a money thing.
They
already.
do,
they have
They
to
do.
make, and you have to earn money, and then you get, you know.
Well, and this is a whole nother aspect to it, but part of another grant that we're a part of is a work-based learning grant, and it's through the State Department, obviously. But we're been charged with collecting data. And you have to report it on a quarterly basis, what you're doing, K through 12, for financial literacy and for career readiness. And so that would be another part of that. I think that we could, use those same people to help implement that, so we're actually getting the numbers reported. Because I know that there's lots of stuff going on, we just don't have a way to collect all of that. So if we could use that money for that professional development and get that stuff going, I think that'd be great.
But I think it's important to add that, we kind of heard it earlier in the e-gaming proposal, is that our kids are learning technologies now that they weren't exposed, and that we all think balancing a checkbook is something that we should know how to do. I haven't balanced a checkbook in 15 years, once I got the cell phone and I can check my balance. I don't have to balance my checkbook, so why would we teach that? But that's one of the first things I hear from parents or grandparents. I can't know how to balance a checkbook. I don't know that I could do it again either. But we are in a different technology, and so being able to access the technology that we use, that's what Ms. Cornell focuses on with the professional development that they are trying to add. That's what Ms. Kramer was really keen to. Was in getting our kids with the technology that they have available to them now, so we're not, counting back change is kind of important. And I say kind of, I want everybody to know how to do it, because I think it teaches money skills.
Yeah, you said there's never gonna be any cash, and we don't need it.
I mean, you're punching, I don't know, I'm not saying we gotta abandon it, it's good to have some of that history.
It's been abandoned.
True. So I want my kid to know he's counting back change so he gets the right stuff back. But to be able to kind of keep up with the modern world and what we're trying to do with that financial literacy at the middle school is just get them a little taste in their mouth of what they can do at the high school. So I think it's awesome as we kind of build that for those kids that are learning on technology that is now archaic and not something that they want to try to rehash the old a little bit, so I think it's pretty cool.
So I got a question here. I know we were talking about making this required for students to graduate, but is it gonna be a requirement? Are you looking for it to be a requirement at the middle school as well?
I don't
Or
think
just
so.
optional?
I don't think so. I think at this point, we want to keep that optional.
Yeah, okay.
Because I mean, it's working for us, but I definitely agree at 16, 17 years old as a junior in high school. Probably not a bad idea, especially with the, student loan debt as they're going out to school. I think that's a great thing to have an understanding of how credit works. I mean, compounding interest is terrible for kids, and when they get out at 17 years old.
So are we ready to take action on that, or?
It's up to the board, but
I
it's
make
just
a
a
motion
discussion
that-
item, so.
I make a motion that we require as a graduation requirement the half credit of business, what do you want to call it?
Personal finance.
Of school finance.
Starting point.
Oh, yeah, we have to have a starting year because we can't just do it tomorrow, okay?
So it would be the freshmen that would be coming in next year. So in 22, you're incoming freshman.
So that they wouldn't have to take it till their junior year.
Right.
Right. So that the freshman class of 2022 will be the first class required to get this half credit.
A motion.
I'll second.
Got a couple seconds. 2 seconds. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? It's not a fan of the required.
So you don't need anything from us for this grant or this money we're talking about?
I'm sorry.
You don't need anything from us
No.
for this, okay?
No.
I was thinking that you
No,
did.
I'll get with Wendy. When it comes in, she can help me with that.
I think it's interesting, it's a great idea.
All right, thank you. Just so you know, I did do a little bit of research in Conway Springs and Clearwater do have it as a graduation requirement. So we'll be the third one in the area then here, but statewide it's at 44% that require it, so. Here we go. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Next thing we got is the Fort Transit.
Yes, doing our annual, as you know, I've talked about this for many years. Each year we come to you, we try to keep our district vehicle fleet up to date. And so our goal is always to try to cycle out 2 vehicles each year. We have about 20 vehicles in the district. So if we cycle out 2 each year, we can guarantee that all of our vehicles are 10 years old or newer within our fleet, best we can. And so this year we actually will probably, we have a car that we're looking at that is actually under $20,000. So that's not something that'll be something that's in the financials towards you, but it's not something that the board necessarily has to approve. But we are looking at another Ford Transit to take an old van out of commission and out of the fleet and replace it with another Transit. The Transits have been great for us that we've been purchasing these last few years. They've been really, really solid. And so we did get 3 bids, put them in your packet for you to review with Raber Ford, our local dealer, coming in with the lowest bid on that. And so that is something the board's up for discussion tonight. We can surely bring that back to you next month if you need more time to discuss it, but the information is in front of you.
So are you trading in an old van?
We would probably auction off an old van. That's
Okay.
what we've been doing.
So this 34,825 is not with the trade-in, just that's the
Correct.
cost?
Yes, yeah, typically our vehicles have been, even our old vehicles have been going great at auctions, so that's what we've been doing.
Okay, so we get a little money.
So we'll get a little off of that, yes.
What car do we have?
What's that?
What car do we have?
We have a Chevy Malibu right now. And then Kelly, the other one is another Malibu, is that correct?
There's another Malibu.
Yeah.
What year are they?
The one we currently have is 2016 Chevy Impala.
Oh, it is an
And believe it or not, it already has, to start this school year, already had 101,000 miles.
That's right, it is an Impala.
That was in July.
What's the other one?
The one that we're gonna be getting.
Yeah, I thought you said there were 2 cars. We have 2 cars or one?
We're purchasing a second one this year. We have an Impala right now.
And how many new vans do we have?
We would be getting 1 Transit and then 1 car.
I mean, how many new ones do we have?
4, that'd be 4 Transits.
So we have 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, how many Transits? I understand that, sorry.
But right now we have 4.
No, we have 3 right now, approval would be 4.
Thanks, Kelly. And what other old things do we have?
We have like our delivery van, we have 2 minivans.
We have 1 Dodge Caravan that has 210,000 miles on it that we probably auction off. We have another big, like the old style cargo van that is a 2005 and it has 192,000 miles on it.
How often do those used?
The big van is used every day, that's what's.
We're gonna probably use one of those and use it as a common van. Because the 192 driving on that Mr. Ybarra Sacco is driving around now. So we would take the one with 129,000 big box van, cargo van, and let Mr. Ybarra drive that.
And use that one for this?
Yeah, and we keep a fleet list at all time, we can release that to the board anytime you want.
Well, could you do that then?
Sure, absolutely.
I can see this not.
Okay.
Did they give you an estimate on delivery time or anything like that? 'Cause
They're just now starting to build, so it'll be probably December.
we don't need it like immediately, right? Hopefully. Okay.
So we can take action on that, I guess, if we want there, we have to get it before the first year, is that?
No.
Doesn't matter when we get it.
We would just, yeah, no,
That's right, yep.
Just one question on this. It says on the radar, is that exactly equipped like the last van, but it doesn't give me any detail. But the other 2 bids have detail on it, so I don't know what was on the
Here you go.
last.
Here's the last one, the first one with all that. He did not send that to me this year, but that's the one that he's referring to, that's the same.
like I said, if we need.
You guys can pass that around if you want to take it.
I think we should
We don't need
table
to,
it.
yeah, we don't need to make a decision on it.
No,
Yeah.
we can bring it
I think
back.
we should all have that information.
Yeah.
You can give
that's just Kelly, or that
That work?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's fine, I was
We've
looking
been
fine, probably
I
Gabby.
know we've been saying we're gonna keep doing this, but we've also
Yeah,
been.
2024 transit quotes.
And that's kind of the whole idea of putting it as a discussion item. So
Yep,
we
that's
have time to
exactly
think about it and make
Exactly
decisions.
Yeah.
Okay, so good information, Kelly. We'll get back with you on that.
Okay.
Next thing we got is the safety plan.
Yes, safety and operation plan, obviously the board's been discussing throughout the year. And so that is up for discussion again this evening. The board has said that they will discuss it until we stop discussing it, I suppose, so.
Yeah.
So but you've said that's been on the agenda for discussion. Holly is here this evening for new updates. If you have any questions about what has currently been going on since the last time we talked about it. And the district is not recommending any changes. So we feel like the plan is going well, but we'll be happy to answer any questions. And then obviously it's up for the board for discussion.
One thing, Larry, I think you asked a question or made a comment about the county being able to shut the school down last meeting.
I don't know, was that it? Can they shut schools down?
Something to that effect. Well, because of SB 40, the county cannot shut the school down. It's up to the school board. So I want the school board to know that the county can give a recommendation.
It's always a recommendation.
Yeah, but they cannot shut us down. The school board is the one.
Yes.
That. And then on our COVID count, to me it's a little cumbersome to read. Derby's got a nice dashboard that they use. It's very simple, very easy for the parents to read. If you can look at that, maybe we can do something similar to that on the school. That would be good. And then I think it was Yavara that asked the question, and Pat even commented again on the swab. Do you know which one we're using right now?
Holly, I'd have to have you answer that.
Oh, well, we use the Vinex now.
Could you talk loud, I can't hear over here.
We use the Vinex now, rapid antigen test. I mean, I do not know exactly what the spot says, I can get that for you.
Yeah, if you could, and make sure that if.
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, it just is the sterile swab. Actually, and I have that here too. I'll look at it.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure we get an answer to that.
Yep, we can do that.
And they also want to know what are the qualifications for the people that we have hired to do the testing?
So what they've done on the people that we tested, they've taken like an online tutorial and testing. Then they've also read over how to do the testing. And then I watch them do some of the testing and then they get to do the testing.
Yeah, they're trained by our medical staff. They do not necessarily have to have medical backgrounds.
No, you do not have to have a medical background.
Okay, another something, I would like to see us raise the percentage. The 1%, 2%, I don't know how we came by that, but I don't know. Schools in our area that have gone to that are quite a lot higher than that. And then you sent us the, I just had it up here and it just went away. You sent us the, okay, here it is, hang on a second. It listed all those districts in Kansas in the.
Oh, yeah, from the state?
Yeah, and they were outbreak areas because of the county that they're in. And the biggest percent of those don't require masks, they're recommending masks, like we are when our numbers are lower. So I think the least we can do is just raise our percentage up to match the schools around us. Since most of them.
Our percentages, however we came around to get them, are, in my mind, are about right. We haven't had, since week 6, the middle school was above, but week 7 and week 8, we were all good. And the average over those 8 weeks, our limits are above those. I think we got it about right.
That's because I just like to see raising a couple percent, because you list, all these districts are listed as active outbreak schools in Kansas. And they use the county, which is why we shut down our schools, so we use the county. And now we're not using the county, so, I mean, Mulvane just went to, I think 4%, maybe 6%, Derby 6%, I think Mulvane just went to 4%.
Of the whole
So why,
school.
or 6%.
So why do you want to raise that?
I just think 1%, I mean, at least make it about 2%, 1% is just,
So we're not max.
I know, I'm just gonna just raise it a little. Because we're never gonna get rid of them, I know that, and we're never gonna say, it's just not gonna go that way.
Well, if you raise it, you're restricting.
No, I'm allowing more people
Oh, I
to
see.
have.
Okay. I was thinking the other way.
This whole list here, master encourage, and we always make sure that we go by what everybody else in our area is doing for salaries, so I don't see why we can't do the same thing for, you know, let's do it.
I don't agree with that.
Well, I know, but we do, we look at everybody, we aren't the trailblazer, we're the ones that look at what everybody else is.
I think we've got it about right.
That's why I respect that, Larry.
We're doing very good on the elementaries. All 4 of them are doing very good. Middle school and high school's got, there's been 28 cases at the middle school and 32 at the high school.
32 cases?
Yeah.
Right now?
For 8 weeks.
Oh, for 8 weeks, well, that's 8 weeks, I'm talking.
Well, I'm just telling you what.
Yeah, well, we had masks for that time, and we didn't have masks, and I think we need to talk about now. And now we're not using the county, that's a huge difference.
If we were using the county.
Oh, you know what, our
we'd all
county
be
has
in
never, ever been in blue, never, since it started, never. Like, so I am not all masked, and I am not all no masks, at all. I believe in masks, but at some point, when your county has never been cleared, we have to at least 1%?
Well, I think
We hear all these people, but they count for something.
because we're not using the county numbers,
Right.
I think we have to have some guidelines
I
here,
agree.
because we don't want to have outbreaks.
I agree, but I just think
And I think we got it about right.
1%?
So currently it
Well,
would
that's
change.
only in one school.
No, that's in all the elementary schools. Or is that?
Oh,
which one?
No, it's 2%.
Okay,
It's 1% in the middle school.
okay, why can't they both be 2% or 4%?
But currently it wouldn't change anything.
Okay, but that, it just, it feels better, it means that we're listening to people. The schools around us.
I guess I just don't see, because we're saying it's recommended. So if you don't want to wear a mask, if you don't want your children to wear a mask, then they don't have to wear a mask.
But if we go above that 1%,
Yeah.
if one more person in one of these schools is positive, has no symptoms, is positive,
They'd have,
that whole
the
school
high
has
school
to-
would have to have 5 in
no,
1 week.
Yeah.
That's 1% for high school.
okay, but I'm talking about the elementary school. One of
That's
these schools.
2% in the elementaries.
I'm just asking that.
I guess I would like to back up and maybe get a clarification of how we came up with the percent. I don't think we've ever got a good answer.
Sure.
How we came up with that percent.
Yeah, I apologize if you feel that way. I feel like we've talked about that in the past, but it is, when we approached, we feel like our job is to give you what we're hearing from our medical people. That's all we're repeating. So the board through discussions has taken the safety and operation plan out of, that realm, and now it's in this realm, which is fine. When we contacted our medical panel to try to get advice on that percentage, then they were not comfortable giving us those percentages. They didn't feel like that was ethically okay for them, so.
I don't think that's true. I don't think we talked to the board, that medical panel. A couple people on the medical panel that I've talked to said they didn't have any input on the percent.
Yeah.
So is that true?
Holly, we asked that.
I spoke to everyone on the medical panel.
Okay, well.
And everyone but one said absolutely not, and the other one did not carry it away.
about no masking, or they gave you a percent?
They did not want to give a percent.
They did not want to do a percent. One finally did say the percentage, she was at 1%. The others did not want to go by school, and they did not want to go to change.
So we didn't have a majority to work with, so therefore, like Larry said, we went with the professional opinion of our medical staff. So that is what it is based off of.
I got a question, so how are we getting the positive results? Are we getting all the positive results from you testing in the schools, or is it coming from the health department and the doctor's office?
All the above. So
what's the majority?
it varies. It honestly varies from week to week. So on our testing, if we get a positive, or at the doctor's office, if they have a positive case, we get a copy of that. Our health department doesn't do a lot of testing, so we don't have a lot from that. We do have a lot of people that go to Winfield and do testing there, so we get a lot from that. It just kind of varies on the number of testing that we do, depending on our close contact. So that makes a difference on how many come from directly from our testing. So it does vary week to week how many we get from there.
So would our close contacts most likely come from our testing?
So that depends. I mean, and I do have the numbers that we can, like when we first started the 2 weeks before we shut down, I can trace it back to 13 of the positive cases were from close contact. If you go from the one case and those exposures, we can go to 13. If you count, like, those would go to siblings and parents that are in the district teaching, because obviously that affects and has a role that effect. That can actually go up to 19 through that situation. Then once we came back and were in mass, for those 3 weeks, we had 4. Now, since the last 2 weeks when we did not have mass, except for the middle school had mass 1 week, and then we do have our close contact for mass, we have not had any close contact exposures that have been positive through the schools.
So you said mask work?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Any other questions on that? I guess I'll bring up the point that I brought up before is, I respect your opinion on this, Ollie, I just would like a little bit more maybe research on it. If there's any new information out there, because we all know new information is coming out every day, reference those that have been known COVID positive and natural immunity. I know it's getting a lot of hype out there in the national press also, and it seems to be getting ignored at the national level. I just don't want us to put our blinders on. So I would like that at least addressed in some way.
And I think kind of what you said, honestly, from the research I've seen, they just struggle trying to decide what you can need from that natural immunity and what you can't. And so there really isn't much research that you can gather, or that I've seen gather from that.
Any other thoughts?
Serious
thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
Adam, can you make sure that all the questions that get asked, like earlier tonight, get answered?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Chris.
Have a good dialogue going with the people.
Part of the sterile swab. It's just a sterile swab.
Just a sterile swab. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, good discussion.
Well, I make a motion that we just go ahead to raise the percentage so it's even at least at both schools of 2%. The second, I agree, on that.
Got a motion on the table? Not hearing a second, motion would die. So we'll move on to administrative reports.
Well, can I talk about, just this kind of on the same subject, what do we do for the kids in quarantine? You know, like they're gone for 10 days or whatever the limit is.
The teachers should follow up, shouldn't they, to help that kid, let him know what he missed.
Because they can't be on, I mean, I know they can only be online 40 hours, is that right? So does being in quarantine, if they were online, I guess they can't be online because the teacher's not doing it online, but are we making sure that they're getting their assignment?
That's what needs to be done.
But, I never did homework when somebody was sick, because you don't want to sit there and do homework when you're sick. I would just say they can get it done when they get back. So either making sure that they, if they're home quarantine because they're just home quarantine, then I think, the teacher has an obligation to make sure that they're getting what they need.
They get caught up.
But if they're home because they do have symptoms and they're sick, I think that should wait till they get back. And our policy is like 2 days for every day you're gone, so. But, I do want to make sure something's being done to make sure.
Yes, students should be worked with through quarantines. If that is not happening, that needs to go to the administration. And if it's not being handled by the administration, then it needs to come to me.
Are we having everybody log in, or everybody? Do we have a lot of absences, I guess, with people that, someone brought up, I think one of these, but we don't know where everyone is, the gaming people. Do we know where everybody is, or that's enrolled, or?
That's why I think so. We do have some students that unfortunately, just like at every high school, fortunately, they are Ubers. And sometimes they go live with other families. We're waiting for some enrollment papers from other districts. But yes, we've done whole business, we continue to monitor, and it's not just a Wellington issue, it is across the country issue.
I was impressed with that,
Like I said, there is a lot of articles about, almost a million kids that are still unaccounted for in other districts that should be accounted for. So I like to think that our staff did a very nice job of reaching out to families, reaching out to kids. Ms. Smith, myself, Officer Wiley, as well as our counselors at the high school, really reaching out, making sure that kids are accounted for. And like I said, it's one of those things where it's a tough time for a lot of people where they're trying to figure out if they can afford rent in our district, maybe they're trying to figure out where they need to live. So those things are happening, unfortunately. But I would say I think our district is doing a nice job making sure that those families know where resources are, as well as at the high school as well.
Okay, they brought that up, so I got that down here, if we knew what our people were.
Okay, so let's move on to administrative reports again. Got anything?
No, I don't know if any administrators want to talk, but earlier today I sent you enrollment numbers for the year. Always try to get those to you in around the October meeting, since we have the September 20th count date that we work with. And I wanted to get you those numbers. We've actually now compiled 12 years of data, so you can look back 12 years to kind of see as we move into the restructuring discussion here in our community, kind of see our declining enrollment that's happened over time. And so we were down 9 students this year, which is still a decline, less than it has been the last couple of years, but I want to keep that data present when you're talking to community members as those topics come up in person.
Appreciate that. Okay, so got good reports in our packet, so if you haven't, make sure you look over those. And the next thing on the agenda is the executive session. So
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session for 10 minutes to discuss non-elected personnel. Regular meeting will resume at, include Adam and the administrative team. And the regular meeting will resume at 9:07 p.m.
Adam, where are we going for the executive
We're
session?
going to go in the 5th grade classroom.
Okay. So I've got a motion, need a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. Clear and executive. Go back in session. I don't think I needed to do that, but I did anyway.
My life.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on, no action was taken in the executive session, so we're moving on to the consent agenda.
Approve the minutes of the September 13th meeting and September 27th special meeting. Approve payroll bills. Payroll $1,070,382.39. Bills $494,475.25. Transfers vocational $50,000. At risk $200,000. Approved ADHE ELC K through 12 grant for $108,928. Personnel, approved new hires, Michelle Polidor, certified crisis prevention instructor, Kaya Rodriguez, WHS assistant wrestling coach, Kimberly Holiday, Maggie King, WHS assistant softball coach, Matt McComb, WHS assistant wrestling coach, Emma Raines, para, Eisenhower Elementary, Connor Burnett, WHS assistant boys basketball coach, 9th grade, Leanne Rockery, para, WHS. Approve resignations, Samantha Kaler, para, Washington, Cynthia Palmer, para, Eisenhower.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all those in favor raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Moving on to board comments.
I got one.
Go ahead, Larry.
Renee Case, came to Lions Club and told us about Reality TV, which is coming, 10/14, that's this Thursday, anyway, 10/14. So that sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, I looked at it, it's really neat.
We've done this
Fourth
every
year, I think.
Yeah, it's really, really neat.
What'd you say, Larry, fourth year?
That's what she said. You
I
weren't.
looked at it one time, I couldn't the other time, but yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of simulation thing.
What?
It's kind of simulation.
Right.
Different things. People, it takes lots of people to come in, so the community's really, helped out with it, and been really receptive to the idea. So that's good. I was just wondering what you thought about moving our meetings to the little theater. The auditorium seems too
Middle school little
big,
theater?
at the middle school little theater. I haven't been there for a long time. The high school seems too big. I'm not gonna sit on my back again. I've said this for 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years. But the other night, I mean, they're right behind you, you've got your computer open. It's just, and I'm not gonna turn around and look at people. It's just uncomfortable. The little theaters, small, if nobody shows up, they don't show up. But last time, we had people in the hallways, and they shouldn't have to stand in the hall to just come to the meeting. And that doesn't happen all the time, but, I don't know, it's just we thought about it 50 years ago when I was on the board, but at that time, everything you wanted maybe to look at or needed was in Sharon Hayes' office. And now it's right here on our computers pretty much. So you wouldn't have to send anybody anywhere to get information. I don't know, I just thought it might be something to try for 2 or 3 months.
I would just make a suggestion that the little theater is probably not board ready. Nicest way to put it.
Well, if it's not board ready, how can it be student ready?
You mean, I think what Tom's meaning is presentation wise.
It probably needs a little bit of.
Or what does it mean, what would it mean?
That whole pod needs gutted, really. I mean, but it's not in great shape, but you'd have to, I mean, we can go there for sure. There's seats and everything, it's just very, it's just very dated, and there's seats missing, and there's just, it needs redone completely.
And we wouldn't be.
But it's not
able to
that it
have
wouldn't be
presentation.
functional, I mean, we could do it. It's not a matter of not being able to do it, we absolutely could. And I agree, it's kind of the space-wise, it's kind of a cool place. It kind of reminds me of like you're going to an off-Broadway show or something, it's kind of neat, but I do think that it needs updated desperately. I think that's something the district needs to spend money on at some point.
After longer, right?
Yeah, after a while.
Right.
I like the idea of going to different schools like we've been doing.
I do, I
We
like
still
it.
sit with our back to
I agree, I hate sitting with my back to the public. I feel like if they're gonna come, we should at least be able to.
I mean, I watch city council, I've watched city council in Wichita, I watched school board meetings in Wichita, I've gone to Mulvane school board meetings. Nobody sits with their back to people. I mean, I just can't believe we still do it.
I said,
And I'm mad at myself for
my
allowing
back
me
to
this year to
the
sit my back to people.
as a staff member.
I mean, it's just a negative feeling when you walk in.
Well, that's true, but it's just, I mean, the room just set up.
And, like Pat said, it's her laptop, so that she can be looking at something.
Sure.
So, you know, I don't know if you
Yeah.
I mean, could the audience sit right here?
It would be easy to do it in this space, I agree. It's difficult the way we're set up the central office,
Yeah.
but in a space like this, we can for sure.
I agree with Pat, I wouldn't want mine back.
Okay.
Especially as how close in proximity
Sure.
to people.
Noted, thank you.
I forgot to ask Daniel, how many speech pathologists do we have on staff?
We have 3.
We have 3.
That's great.
Okay. And then elections are November 2nd. I know when Deanna and Tom and I came on board, we were kind of like just thrown in. Is it? We didn't know anybody, did we, Tom?
That's right.
'Cause like, but since the elections are November 2nd, our next meeting is November 6th. For the people that get elected, can we bring them in?
No, it's not official until.
They're always invited.
You know?
Yeah, we
I mean,
haven't seen them yet.
I know, but whoever, yeah, I just would like to be able.
Maybe make an effort to invite them.
Yeah, to invite them, so at least we know
That's good idea.
something about them.
But they could come in.
Yeah, they could, I think,
But they should come.
but yeah, but just, just to be.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if it's official on November 20th, we can bring them in on December 1st, December.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that way we can get them, they can get up and running, and when we start in January after we leave, we lose these 2 fine people.
Yes, so something that I've talked to Jason about, we have not continued this conversation, I've talked to a few of you about it before. I would like to do one of 2 things. I would like to either do a board retreat to Wichita and invite those people who win the election to come with us. That way we have Carol and Larry as mentors there. We also have those people there, and yes, you're a mentor, Larry, congratulations. But we go up there, we get a chance to, to get out of the office, and that way it is accessible to our community. If somebody's really interested, they can come up if they really wanted to. Or we don't do that and we have something more here and we invite KSB down and we do a training. And we also go over district goals and get them up to date. So I would like to do one of those 2 things, whether it be out of town or whether it be here in Wellington.
It is important that they have KSBE training.
That's one thing I'd like to ask about is the KSB conference is, kind of, since I've already been, I've kind of honestly been ignoring the emails about it.
Yes.
So when is that conference?
The KSB conference, unfortunately, this year is scheduled before the elections.
That's fine. Oh, I see what you're saying.
But they have a
Why
special
would they
board,
do
they
that?
have a training.
Yes,
a
I can bring a training,
After.
in, yes.
I mean,
Yeah, they should have.
I mean, it's
like,
usually local,
it
it's
goes
usually
to
somewhere else, it's all over the state.
Oh, so it's not one where they come
No, it's a new board training workshop. that they
at our
do.
board meeting?
No, I went to mine in Wichita.
Okay, because that was the problem, I got hit by going to the KSB conference, and then literally a week later, I hear the same speech that I just saw at the conference.
Yeah, when I brought it,
Yeah, I think they just make sure they go to that conference.
Yes.
Because, I think it's important to lead, just like, I think it's important to lead your environment, to work on something. Like I mentioned before with Raven Fry, but I think just somewhere different than where you always are.
I'm not a big fan of on the retreat forums.
Oh, I wanna go somewhere, I
I
wanna have happy hour at night in the bar.
don't see the need.
Yeah.
I'd rather do it right here so that you get acclimated to what's going on here, right here.
The route doesn't matter, does it? Okay, I don't care, I've said that, I like to go somewhere different, just to.
yeah. Like I said, one of the 2, either here
Learn
or.
that, actually.
I would like to thank all of the hard work that I've seen in the schools, and I thank the administration, the teachers, all staff. I think, things aren't exactly as perfect as we'd like them. We're not back to the old days. They're making the best of it, and they're enjoying school, and they're making it for the kids.
Thank you, Carol.
I think the homecoming parade was awesome. It was so awesome to see the kids at the, candidate, it's like a pep rally inside. I mean, the enthusiasm, and I think they were just, I think this senior class, these kids they're ready to do anything because they can. It's so nice to see that, and I know a lot of work was put on the parade and the assembly and everything that happened.
It was a great crowd at football.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree, I thought the whole
I
week,
think
I thought the
Sammy-
weekend went great.
Brown, has been, I mean, just this pep club is just an amazing thing. At Rose Hill, we had a whole section full of Wellington kids, and I don't think that's happened, I don't know when the last time happened.
Yeah, the away game.
Yeah, at a away game especially, you don't have near that many at a home game, and I am anticipating that we will. And I think Sammy has had a lot to do with that.
Yep, I agree.
So I was gonna thank her.
I guess I'd just like to thank Julian and the staff here. Building looks great. Thanks for letting us.
For hosting us, yeah.
Crash the party here.
Yep.
I'm hot, I'm trying to.
Joanne, you just gotta thank you for hosting.
I have to be opposite.
Just like that way.
Okay, so if there's no other comments, we're adjourned.
Thank you.